If you don't listen to me, we're getting a divorce. I'd rather divorce a husband who says such selfish things, I declared, my voice trembling with a mixture of frustration and resolve. He shot me a smug smile, unaware of what was about to unfold. My name is Emily. I'm 35 and have been married for 5 years, living just with my husband. Although I've longed for children, we haven't been blessed yet. We discussed fertility treatments, but in the end, my husband was against them. He believed in leaving things to nature. If we can't have children, it's still a life worth living, just the two of us, he said once, easing my mind, at least for a while. After we got married, both of my husband's parents passed away one after the other, leaving us no time to think about treatments. My husband is quite dominant, a trait that showed even more after we were married. At work, where he was once my senior, he would call me his foolish wife in front of relatives and scold me harshly for the smallest mistakes. It was a continuation of the power dynamic we had before marriage, one I had hoped would soften over time, but it didn't. It might sound like my husband is heartless, but he wasn't always like this. When I worked under him, he gave me good advice, guiding me when I stumbled. He also appreciated my efforts, and when my beloved grandfather passed away, it was my husband who comforted me. It was during those difficult days that we began dating, and eventually, we got married. After the wedding, I left my job and became a full-time housewife. Every evening is the same. Hey, Emily, I'm home, he calls out, coming through the door well past 9 p.m. He's always late, his managerial position keeping him in the office with overtime hours. Welcome home, I respond with a smile, though inside I feel the weight of the routine. He doesn't respond much, just heads straight to the sofa, taking off his shirt and socks. I gather them up as I ask, "You're late again tonight. You must be exhausted." But he says nothing, just sits there, silent as always. He must be really tired, I tell myself, convincing my heart that this is just how things are. I prepare dinner, and when it's ready, he eats quickly, still not saying a word. Once he's done, in about 10 minutes, he heads to the bathroom. I lay out a towel and fresh clothes for him, clean up the dishes, and when he comes out of the bath, he heads directly to bed. My husband has always been a man of few words, but lately those few words feel like they're disappearing entirely. But I wonder if my husband's recent promotion has been wearing him down. For the past year, our conversations have become fewer and fewer, yet despite the silence between us, I still trust and love him. He stood by me during my most difficult moments, and that's something I will never forget. I lost my father when I was in middle school, and just a few years later, during my freshman year of high school, my mother passed away too. After that, my grandfather took me in and raised me as if I were his own daughter. He was warm, kind, and I adored him deeply. My goal was to repay him for everything he did for me. When I began working, I saved up as much as I could to take him on trips and share special meals together. Those memories are some of the happiest of my life. I wish he could stay healthy and energetic forever. But just 3 years after I started working, my grandfather was diagnosed with lung cancer. He passed away soon after, and I was left completely alone. I knew eventually we would part ways, but it happened too soon. There were so many more things I wanted to do for him, more time I wish we could have shared. His death left me heartbroken, and I spent many nights crying myself to sleep. The person who noticed my sorrow was my boss at the time, now my husband. He listened to me with genuine care, telling me, "You've been through so much, and you did well." For a man who was usually stern and intimidating at work, he showed me such tenderness when I needed it most. I was incredibly lucky to have him as my boss back then, and it was during those moments I saw the kindness in him. I know, deep down, he's a good man. That's why, despite everything, I still want to be the kind of wife who supports him. One afternoon on my day off, the house phone rang. "Hello," I answered. "Hey, Emily, it's me," came the voice of my husband's younger brother. "Oh, long time no see. What's up?" "I need to talk to my brother. Is he around?" "Sure, hold on a second." I called out to my husband, who was lounging in the living room. "You have a phone call," I said, but as usual, there was no response. Without a word, he stood up and took the phone. "Hello. Hey, how are you? What's going on?" His face, which had been expressionless just moments ago, lit up with a smile as he talked to his brother. My brother-in-law is 15 years younger than my husband, and perhaps because of the large age gap, my husband dotes on him endlessly. I had heard that my brother-in-law was living a blissful life with his beautiful wife, whom he married 2 years ago, so I was surprised when my husband's tone suddenly shifted. Ah, really? Are you okay? His voice became serious. I wondered what was happening on the other end of the line. Well, if you're ever in trouble, just let me know, okay? I'm your big brother after all, he added before hanging up the phone. What happened? Is something wrong? I asked, sensing the weight of the conversation. My brother, he's been laid off, my husband replied, looking downcast. What? Laid off? I was shocked. I never imagined something like that happening to him. Yeah, I heard his company was struggling, but I didn't expect him to actually lose his job. My husband sank into a chair, clearly upset. I was just as shaken. My brother-in-law is so different from my husband. He's gentle, calm, and always respectful. He treats me kindly, often defending me when my husband makes harsh comments in front of our relatives. He'd say, "Bro, that's not fair to Emily," and never hesitates to apologize for his brother's rudeness. His wife is much like him, kind and thoughtful, and I had always admired them as a couple. Now, knowing he'd been laid off, I felt a growing desire to help. I wanted to support them, even if in some small way. Hey, isn't there something we can do to help? I asked my husband. He shot me a sharp look. What do you mean by that? Well, I hesitated. Maybe we can do something to make your brother feel a little better. I just thought. Before I could finish, my husband let out a heavy sigh. You really are hopeless. You don't understand anything about the real world, do you? You haven't been out there. He's going through the toughest time of his life right now, and you think some casual gesture from us will fix it. Outsiders should stay quiet. His words stung, and I was taken aback by the aggression in his tone. I had only wanted to help, but clearly, I had upset him. Outsider, I asked, almost pleading. Aren't I part of this family too? Family, he sneered. You're my wife, not my brother's family. You're an unrelated outsider. His words felt like a knife to the heart. I had never seen him this cold before. His brother's situation must have deeply affected him, but there were lines he crossed that shouldn't have been. Just don't do anything unnecessary, he snapped before storming out the door. From that moment on, he became even more oppressive toward me. Every little thing I did was met with criticism. What's with this meal? You should learn from my brother's wife. Or, what did you do all day? My brother's wife manages to keep herself tidy and run the household perfectly. His words weighed on me, and our home, once a quiet sanctuary, became a place where I felt like an outsider. He barked at me, his voice sharp and unreasonable. I had never seen him like this before. Enough. What on earth has happened to you? I finally snapped back at my husband. Shut up. Everything's a mess because of you, he blurted out, making no sense. I didn't even know where to start with him. Soon, we weren't even making eye contact, and the gap between us grew wider each day. I began to question our relationship. One morning, he started sorting through our belongings as if undertaking a thorough cleaning. He separated items into necessary and unnecessary, steadily filling garbage bags. I wondered what he was up to, but our relationship had become so cold that I didn't have the energy to ask. Then, unexpectedly, he spoke to me. Hey, what are you doing? You should start packing too, he said. Packing? For what? I asked, puzzled. We're moving out. I'm giving this house to my brother and his wife. What? What are you talking about? I was shocked to discover that he intended to give our home to his unemployed and struggling brother and sister-in-law. Wait a minute. Why are you doing this all of a sudden? Shut up. Don't defy me, he shouted, but I didn't back down. You said you wanted to do something for your brother, didn't you? I reminded him. That's a completely different issue. What are we supposed to do if we hand over the house? Where are we going to live? We'll figure that out later. My brother's in trouble right now, and as his elder brother, I need to help him. He was steering the conversation entirely on his own terms. To begin with, my brother-in-law was not the kind of person who would kick us out and move into someone else's house so brazenly. So why was this happening? As I gave my husband a suspicious look, he handed me something. If all you're going to do is talk back, you're of no use to me anymore. We're getting a divorce? Get out of here right now. He threw divorce papers at me, already filled out. I couldn't believe he was proposing divorce. Stunned by his unexpected move, I could only stand there. And yet, it felt strangely appropriate. I didn't feel like we could continue as a couple even if we stayed together. Maybe this is a good opportunity. I picked up the divorce papers that had fallen to the floor and without saying a word, signed them. My husband watched me with a smug, triumphant smile, his expression so ridiculous that I almost laughed. After finishing, I turned to him and said, "This house isn't yours, is it?" "Huh?" he muttered, confused. "This house is the one I lived in with my grandfather, and the land belonged to him too. They were both passed down to me, remember?" I said calmly. Now it was his turn to be stunned. "If the house is in my name, how exactly are you planning to hand it over?" I pressed, watching him scramble for words. No, I mean," he stammered, clearly flustered. "Did you forget?" I continued. "You moved into my house before we got married because you thought paying rent was a waste. I've been covering the property taxes on this house and land every year since they're in my name. You haven't contributed a penny." "Ah, well," he mumbled, realizing how cornered he was. "It doesn't matter anymore," I said coolly. "Once these papers are filed, our divorce will be finalized and we'll be strangers." Wait a minute. Let's calm down," he pleaded, his arrogance fading. "Calm down," I shot back. "That's my line. You're the one who threw divorce papers in my face like they meant nothing. How selfish can you be?" It's unbelievable. I couldn't hold back anymore. All the frustrations I had bottled up over the years came pouring out. I had loved this man, believed he loved me too. But maybe I had been wrong all along. I never thought our marriage would end like this. "Emily, wait, this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk," he begged. "Talk about what?" I said, my voice firm. "You were the one who brought up divorce first, weren't you?" "I've had enough." I carefully tucked away the signed divorce papers. "It's a holiday today, but I'll submit them first thing tomorrow morning." My husband sank to the floor, dazed. "No, this can't be happening," he muttered. I looked at him coldly without a shred of sympathy. "This is my house. Please leave immediately. Once the papers are filed, we'll be strangers, and I can't live under the same roof as a stranger." He grumbled and pleaded as he gathered his things, but I didn't waver. To me, he was already a stranger, and I felt no need to show him any mercy. Even when he cried and clung to me, it didn't stir a single emotion. Eventually, my husband left, resigned to his fate. Word of our divorce spread quickly at his company. He was immediately looked down upon at work. I heard rumors that the details of our split, and the way he treated me throughout our marriage, had spread widely. It seemed he had entirely lost his place there too. I couldn't help but wonder who started and spread the rumors. All I did was answer the questions his colleagues and subordinates asked me, nothing more. Then about 6 months after our divorce, I ran into someone I'd rather have avoided, my ex-husband. I had just left the real estate agency when I noticed him. It seemed he had been waiting, lying in wait for me to come out. The whole situation was unsettling, and even when I tried to ignore him, he persisted, following me until I finally lost my patience. "Enough. If you have something to say, just say it quickly," I snapped. "Emily, I've always despised you," he declared, leaving me completely baffled. Apparently, in his mind, he had been blaming me for everything, including his brother's layoff. "What? Why would that be my fault?" I asked, incredulous. "Ever since we got married, bad things just kept happening," he insisted. It was true that after our marriage, there were some unfortunate events, like his parents passing away and his injury, but his father had already been hospitalized long before we wed, and his mother had always been frail. As for his injury, that had been his own doing. He tripped over a curb while drunk and broke his wrist. But somehow, he had twisted these events into blaming me for all of it. "So, you think I was the cause of all your misfortunes, and that's why you hated me?" I asked, exasperated. I had always thought he was just a bit awkward, but to hear that he had secretly despised me was beyond frustrating. It was clear he never took responsibility for anything in his life, always blaming others for his troubles. I couldn't believe this was the same man who had once been a reliable supervisor at his company. I pitied his subordinates, imagining how they must have suffered under his leadership, unjustly criticized for things they hadn't done. It was pitiful that I had been married to someone like this. "And yet, even after divorcing me, bad things keep happening to you?" I asked. At my question, he rolled up his sleeves, revealing painful-looking burns. "My apartment burned down 3 months ago," he said, "but that's not all. I lost my wallet, I'm making mistakes at work, and now my brother is acting cold toward me. He hasn't contacted me in weeks." So, even after our divorce, his streak of misfortunes had continued. Unsurprisingly, I felt no sympathy for him. These were all consequences of his own actions, and I had nothing to do with them. Please, Emily, come back to me. I can't do this without you, he begged. We were together for so long, weren't we? Didn't I take care of things when you were working? And didn't I help you so much when your grandfather passed away? Hearing him try to guilt-trip me sent a chill down my spine. I had never felt so detached from him. All your misfortunes are because of your own actions. Maybe it's time you took a good look at yourself and stopped blaming everyone else for everything, I said, my voice cold and resolute. I turned and walked away from him, ignoring his desperate calls. Emily, wait, Emily. My ex-husband's voice faded as I disappeared into the crowd, pretending I didn't hear him. A week after our divorce, I got a call from my former brother-in-law. Emily, well, you're not my sister-in-law anymore, I guess. Sorry to bother you, but it's about my brother. He went on to explain that the decision to give up the house had been entirely my ex-husband's. Neither he nor his wife had any idea about it. My brother's always been prideful, and it's worried me for a long time. The way he treated you was awful. My wife and I felt terrible watching it all. He paused, then added, I don't know if it's okay to say this, but I think it's good you divorced him. You deserve to be happy, Emily. Thank you, I replied, touched by his words. He then told me that he had found a job shortly after the layoff and was managing to get by. I was genuinely happy for him. He mentioned he was thinking of distancing himself from his brother. It seemed my former brother-in-law had his own complicated feelings about the situation and intended to cut ties with my ex-husband. That explained why my ex-husband couldn't reach him. He was being slowly shut out of his own brother's life. Now, divorced and estranged from the brother he adored, my ex-husband was truly alone. I hoped he would realize the weight of his mistakes, but that was no longer my concern. My priority was to disappear from his life completely. The day I ran into him again, I had just signed a contract with a real estate agent to rent out the house I inherited from my grandfather. The house was too big for me to live in alone, but I couldn't bear to let go of all the memories I shared with my grandfather there. I preferred the idea of someone else living in it, someone who would appreciate the space as much as I did. I was ready to move on with my life. I changed my phone number, find a new place to live, and cut off all ties with my ex-husband. At 35, I knew I still had a long life ahead of me, and I was determined to live it on my own terms.
The text glowed mockingly in the darkness of our bedroom. 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared again, a digital heartbeat of betrayal. I hadn't meant to look at Mark's phone. It had buzzed twice while he was in the shower, and I'd reached for it automatically, thinking it might be the fertility clinic with our latest results. Instead, I found myself staring at Lauren's name. Lauren, my best friend since college. Lauren, who'd held my hand through 3 failed IVF treatments. Lauren, who was now sending my husband messages at 11:43 p.m. I miss you already. Today was perfect. My fingers hovered over the screen. The bathroom door creaked open, steam billowing out. I kept my eyes fixed on the phone, my voice steady. How long? Sarah? Mark's footsteps halted. What are you? How long? The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Mark's breathing grew heavier. 6 months, he finally said. I laughed. The sound was foreign, almost hysterical. 6 months. While I'd been injecting hormones and crying over negative pregnancy tests, you've been fucking my best friend. It's not like that. His voice cracked. You've been so focused on having a baby, you barely see me anymore. Everything is about schedules and temperatures and... Don't you dare. I stood up, his phone still clutched in my hand. Don't you dare make this my fault. Mom's right, you know. A woman your age should have had children by now. Lauren. She understands what I need. The phone hit the wall with a satisfying crack. Mark flinched, but I felt nothing. No tears, no rage, just a cold, crystalline clarity. Your mother. Another laugh bubbled up. Of course. Helen must be thrilled. Her barren daughter-in-law finally getting what she deserves. Sarah, please. Does Evan know? The question surprised even me. Mark's brother had always been kind, always defended me against Helen's subtle jabs. Mark's silence was answer enough. Get out. My voice was steel. Pack a bag and get out. This is my house too. You can't just. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. Remember? You insisted on it because of the tax benefits from my old executive position. The position I gave up because you wanted me to focus on starting a family. He stood there, water still dripping from his hair, looking lost and pathetic in his towel. For a moment, I saw him as Lauren must have, weak, easily manipulated, desperate for validation. Fine. He grabbed some clothes, stuffing them haphazardly into a gym bag. But this isn't over. We need to talk about this properly. Oh, we will. I watched him dress quickly, fumbling with his buttons. Send Lauren my love. Tell her I'll be seeing her very soon. He paused at the doorway, one hand on the frame. I never meant to hurt you. Funny thing about intentions, Mark. They don't mean shit when you're sleeping with your wife's best friend. The front door slammed. I stood in the darkness, listening to his car start up and pull away. My phone lit up, Nina calling. She always had a sixth sense about these things. I let it ring. There would be time for comfort later. Right now, I needed to think. To plan. Lauren had always been so proud of her perfectly curated life, her carefully maintained image. It would be a shame if something happened to destroy all that. I picked up Mark's shattered phone from the floor. The screen was cracked, but I could still make out Lauren's last message, "Sweet dreams, baby. Tomorrow's going to be amazing." No, Lauren. Tomorrow was going to be something else entirely. Helen Mitchell's perfectly manicured nails drummed against my kitchen counter. 3 sharp taps, a pause, then 3 more. Like Chinese water torture in designer jewelry. Mark tells me you're being unreasonable about all this, she said, examining a spot on her blazer. Really, Sarah, at your age, you can't afford to throw away a marriage over one indiscretion. I continued chopping vegetables for a salad I had no intention of eating. The knife made a satisfying thunk against the cutting board. Did he tell you who he was sleeping with? Well, no, but... Lauren. The tomato split perfectly in half under my blade. Your tennis partner. The one you've been pushing him toward since our second failed IVF. The drumming stopped. In the silence, I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, recalculating her approach. Lauren is a lovely girl, she finally said. From a good family. And she's still young enough to. The knife clattered onto the counter. Get out. I beg your pardon? Get out of my house before I do something we'll both regret. She stood, smoothing her skirt with practiced precision. You know, when Mark first brought you home, I told him you weren't suited for our family. Too ambitious. Too focused on your career. A proper wife understands her priorities. Like Lauren does? Exactly like Lauren does. She reached for her purse, then paused. The fertility treatments clearly aren't working, dear. Perhaps it's time to accept that some women aren't meant to be mothers. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Helen's lips curved into a smug smile, probably expecting Mark. Instead, Evan's voice called out from the entryway. Sarah? You home? Helen's smile vanished. Evan doesn't need to be involved in this. Too late. I moved past her to open the kitchen door. We're in here. Evan filled the doorframe, his usual easy smile replaced with concern. His eyes darted between Helen and me, taking in the tension. Mother, he said coolly. I didn't expect to find you here. I was just leaving. Helen clutched her purse like a shield. Sarah and I were having a civilized discussion about her marriage. Really? Evan's eyebrow rose. Because I just ran into Mark at Lauren's place. Seemed pretty uncivilized to me. The color drained from Helen's face. You went to Lauren's? Someone had to tell her husband. My head snapped up. Lauren's married? 3 years now. Poor guy works overseas most of the year. Engineering contracts or something. Evan's voice was casual, but his eyes were hard. Funny how that never came up in all those tennis matches, right, Mom? Helen's composure cracked. She hurried past Evan without another word, her heels clicking rapidly across the floor. The front door slammed behind her. You knew, I said when we were alone. About Mark and Lauren. Evan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Found out last week. Been trying to figure out how to tell you. Why didn't you tell Mark's precious mother instead? Because she already knew. Has known for months. He pulled out his phone, showing me a series of texts. She's been covering for them. Arranging their meetings under the guise of charity events, tennis lessons. The pieces clicked into place. All those times Helen had insisted I was too tired, too stressed to attend her social functions. The knowing looks between her and Lauren at family dinners. She wanted me gone, I whispered. All this time, she was orchestrating my replacement. Sarah. No, this is perfect. I felt that cold clarity returning, sharper now. Helen's always been so concerned about the family's reputation. I wonder how the country club would react to a scandal involving their beloved social chair. What are you planning? I smiled, thinking of Helen's carefully cultivated image, of Lauren's secret marriage, of Mark's desperate need for approval. Nothing they haven't earned. Evan studied me for a long moment. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of burning everyone involved. Don't worry. I picked up the knife again, resuming my methodical chopping. I'm very good at controlling the temperature of things. You should know that by now. The tomato juice spread across the cutting board like blood, and I felt something dark and satisfying unfurl in my chest. Helen wanted a proper wife? I'd show her exactly what a career woman could do when properly motivated. The country club's annual charity gala buzzed with artificial warmth and whispered judgments. I watched Lauren work the room, her red dress catching every eye, her laugh carrying across the space like wind chimes. Mark trailed behind her like a lost puppy, nodding at whatever Helen was saying to their little group. You sure you want to do this? Nina asked, adjusting her camera. As the event's official photographer, she had the perfect cover for capturing everything that was about to unfold. Just be ready. I smoothed my black dress, funeral appropriate, I'd thought when buying it. Lauren's husband should be arriving any minute. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan, James Adams just cleared security. 5 minutes. I'd found Lauren's husband easily enough. A few calls to old contacts from my executive days, some carefully worded emails about urgent business matters. James Adams had been more than happy to fly back early from his contract in Dubai when I mentioned concerns about his wife's handling of their joint accounts. Sarah. Lauren's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood before me, champagne in hand, wearing the same fake smile she'd used when consoling me after my miscarriage. I didn't expect to see you here. Wouldn't miss it. I sipped my water. Helen was very insistent about maintaining appearances. Yes, well. Her eyes darted to where Mark stood. Sometimes appearances are all we have. How's the marriage, Lauren? Yours, I mean. Not mine. The champagne glass trembled slightly. I don't know what you're. Sarah Mitchell? A deep voice interrupted. James Adams stood behind Lauren, his face tight with confusion. I got your messages about the accounts. What's going on? Lauren went rigid. James? You're supposed to be in Dubai until. Until what, Lauren? I asked sweetly. Until the divorce papers were filed? Or until you'd finished transferring his family's inheritance into your private account? The color drained from Lauren's face. Across the room, I saw Helen grab Mark's arm, both of them frozen in horror. What is she talking about? James demanded. Nothing. She's just bitter because you're sleeping with my husband? I raised my voice just enough to draw attention. Or because you and Helen orchestrated this whole thing while stealing from your own husband? The surrounding conversations died. Nina's camera clicked softly, capturing every moment. That's enough. Mark stepped forward, Helen clutching his sleeve. Sarah, you're making a scene. Oh, I haven't even started. I pulled out my phone, showing James the banking records I'd obtained. Your wife has been very busy while you've been away. Setting up offshore accounts, making large transfers. Helen helped her find quite a creative accountant. James grabbed the phone, his face darkening as he scrolled. Lauren's perfect mask cracked. It's not what you think, she pleaded. I can explain everything. Explain what? I pressed. How you and Helen planned this for months. How you used my infertility treatments as cover for your meetings. Or should we discuss the property you bought in your maiden name? The room had gone completely silent. Helen's social circle watched with barely concealed glee as their queen bee's carefully constructed world began to crumble. You vindictive bitch, Lauren hissed. You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I do. See, while you were playing happy families with my husband, I was calling in favors from my old corporate days. Did you know tax fraud investigations can freeze all your assets? Even the hidden ones? James's phone started ringing. Lauren lunged for it, but he stepped back, his face cold. That'll be my lawyer. Excuse me. As he walked away, Lauren's composure shattered. You've ruined everything. No, Lauren. You did that yourself. I moved closer, keeping my voice low. You took everything from me, my marriage, my best friend, my dignity. Did you really think I wouldn't return the favor? Sarah, please. Mark stepped forward. This isn't you. You're right. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. The old Sarah would have suffered in silence, tried to fix things, blamed herself. But you all taught me something valuable about family and loyalty. Nina's camera captured the moment perfectly, Lauren's mascara-streaked face, Helen's horrified expression. Mark's dawning realization that he'd created this version of me. Sometimes, I said, raising my water glass in a mock toast. The only way to deal with toxic family is to burn it all down and walk away from the ashes. The fire alarm chose that moment to shriek to life, sprinklers raining down on designer dresses and perfectly coiffed hair. Right on schedule, thanks to Evan's timing. I walked out dry, protected by the awning, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I heard Helen's outraged scream as her charity gala dissolved into expensive puddles. Sometimes revenge is best served wet. The manila envelope sat unopened on my kitchen counter for 3 days. Nina's photos from the gala were already making waves, Lauren's tearful confrontation with James splashed across social media. Helen's reputation in tatters. But this envelope promised something darker. My phone buzzed. Evan, have you looked at them yet? I texted back, not ready. The doorbell rang. I knew who it was before opening the door. Mark stood there, looking haunted, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. You shouldn't be here, I said. Lauren's pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. I gripped the doorframe, steadying myself. Congratulations. I'm sure Helen's thrilled. It's not mine. His voice cracked. She's 3 months along. James's baby. She knew before. Before us. I laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. So she trapped you for nothing. Sarah, please. I need. What you need doesn't matter anymore. I grabbed the envelope from the counter. But since you're here, you might as well see what your mother's been hiding. The photos spilled across the kitchen table, surveillance shots from a private investigator. Helen meeting with Lauren months before the affair began. bank statements, property deeds. A systematic dismantling of James Adams's fortune, with Helen taking her cut as the facilitator. Mom wouldn't. Mark's face went ashen. She couldn't. She did. Lauren wasn't the mastermind, she was the weapon. Helen used her to get rid of me, probably planned to discard her too once she served her purpose. I spread out more photos. Your mother's done this before. 3 times. Different women, same scheme. How did you? I had resources from my executive days. People who owed me favors. The kind of connections Helen never thought I'd use. I tapped one particular photo. Remember Caroline? Your college girlfriend? The one who suddenly disappeared after Helen caught her looking at the family financial records? Mark sank into a chair, his world visibly crumbling. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to choose. Right now. Lauren's facing fraud charges. James's lawyers are very motivated, and they've got evidence linking Helen to everything. I leaned forward. You can keep protecting your mother, or you can do the right thing for once in your life. By helping you destroy my family? Your family destroyed itself. I'm just exposing the rot. His phone buzzed, Helen's face lighting up the screen. Mark stared at it, then at the photos, his hands shaking. What do you want me to do? Testify. Tell James's lawyers everything you know about Helen's involvement. Help them trace the money. And if I don't? I pulled out one final photo, Helen with Lauren's predecessor, dated 5 years ago. The woman's face was familiar. Too familiar. Then I send this to Evan. Let him know why his first wife really left him. Mark's breath caught. You wouldn't. The old Sarah wouldn't. But you all helped create this version of me. Remember? The phone kept buzzing. Helen's calls growing more urgent. Mark looked trapped, cornered by his own family's lies. I'll do it, he whispered. But not for you. For Evan. He deserves to know the truth. Smart choice. I gathered the photos, leaving him the ones he'd need for the lawyers. You should go. Lauren will be looking for you once the pregnancy news breaks publicly. He stood, aged years in minutes. At the door, he paused. I did love you, Sarah. In my way. Your way wasn't enough. I closed the door on his response. My phone lit up with a text from Nina. Lauren just posted about the baby. Social media's exploding. You okay? I looked at the remaining photos, evidence of Helen's past schemes. Of lives she'd ruined for her family's reputation. The familiar cold clarity settled over me again. I'm fine, I typed back. Just figuring out my next move. Because this wasn't about Mark anymore, or even Lauren. This was about Helen Mitchell, and the legacy of destruction she'd left in her wake. She thought she was protecting her family's reputation. I was going to make sure that reputation was the first thing to burn. The fertility clinic's waiting room felt different now. Sterile. Empty. Like visiting a house you once lived in, only to find strangers had painted over your memories. Mrs. Mitchell? The nurse's voice carried old sympathy. Dr. Williams will see you now. It's Miss Carter again, I corrected, following her down the familiar hallway. My maiden name felt like armor. Dr. Williams hadn't changed, same kind eyes, same gentle manner. But her expression held something new. Concern, maybe. Or pity. Sarah, she said, gesturing to the chair. I was surprised to see your name on my schedule. I need my records. All of them. She folded her hands on the desk. This is about the investigation, isn't it? The fraud allegations against Helen Mitchell? My head snapped up. She smiled sadly. Small community. Word travels. She pulled out a thick file. Helen called yesterday. Tried to access your records herself. Something about proving medical negligence on our part. The room tilted slightly. She what? She claimed you'd authorized it. When we refused, she became insistent. Dr. Williams opened the file. Sarah, there's something you should see. She slid across a lab report dated 6 months ago. My last failed IVF attempt. Look at the hormone levels. I scanned the numbers, then froze. This can't be right. Your body was responding perfectly to the treatment. The embryo was viable. Strong. She paused. Someone tampered with your medication during the critical window. The words hit like shards of glass. How? The prescription was altered. Dosage changed. Another document appeared. This is the original prescription. And this, she placed another beside it, is what was actually filled. Notice the signature? Helen's handwriting. Subtle changes to the numbers. Just enough to ensure failure. My phone buzzed. Evan, Helen's telling everyone you falsified medical records to frame her. Lauren's backing her up. They're going to the board tonight. The room spun. Dr. Williams's voice seemed to come from far away. Sarah? Do you need a moment? No. My voice sounded strange, distant. I need copies. Of everything. Already done. She handed me a sealed envelope. Sarah. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Helen Mitchell has a lot of influence in this community. I stood, envelope clutched to my chest. Not for long. Outside, Nina waited in her car. One look at my face and she knew. What happened? She killed my baby. The words tasted like acid. She made sure I'd never. My hands were shaking. Nina grabbed them. Sarah, breathe. Tell me what you need. My phone buzzed again. Lauren, this time, we should talk. About the baby. About everything. I need you to drive me to Lauren's. Are you sure? After everything. She's pregnant with James's baby. A baby Helen can't control. The pieces clicked into place. And she just gave me exactly what I need to destroy them both. Nina studied me for a long moment. This isn't just revenge anymore, is it? No. I touched the envelope containing proof of Helen's ultimate betrayal. This is justice. The drive to Lauren's was silent. She opened the door looking nothing like the polished socialite from the gala. Her eyes were red, her designer clothes replaced by sweatpants. I was hoping you'd come, she said. Save it. I pushed past her into the house. You're going to tell me everything. Every scheme, every lie, every time Helen manipulated someone's life for her precious family legacy. And why would I do that? I placed the medical records on her coffee table. Because you're carrying the one thing Helen can't control. And trust me, what she did to me? She'll do worse to you. Lauren's hand drifted to her stomach. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. If I help you, she whispered. Then we take her down. Together. I leaned forward. Or you can trust the woman who just proved she's willing to kill an unborn child to maintain her control. Lauren picked up the medical records with trembling hands. As she read, her face went from pale to ashen. Oh God, she breathed. What have I helped her do? The question is, I said, watching her world crumble like mine had, what are you going to do about it? Outside, storm clouds gathered. Perfect weather for what was coming. The Mitchell family estate loomed against the twilight sky, its windows glowing like predatory eyes. The annual board meeting for their charitable foundation was in full swing, Helen's last bastion of power and respectability. Everyone's inside, Evan whispered, meeting me at the side entrance. Mom's about to announce the new funding allocations. Is Mark here? Front row. Looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He touched my arm. Sarah, are you sure about this? Once you do this. Your mother killed my baby, Evan. The words still felt raw. She doesn't get to play charitable savior anymore. Inside, Helen's voice carried through the oak-paneled halls, smooth as aged whiskey. And with these new initiatives, we'll be expanding our support for family planning services. Lauren waited in the shadows, one hand protectively over her stomach. Her testimony would seal Helen's fate. If she followed through. I stepped into the boardroom. Heads turned. Helen's speech faltered. Sarah. Her recovery was immediate, practiced. This is a private meeting. Perfect. Because I have some private matters to discuss. I moved to the center of the room. Like how you tampered with medical prescriptions. How you deliberately sabotaged my fertility treatments. Murmurs rippled through the board members. Helen's smile tightened. You're clearly disturbed, she said. Mark, perhaps you should escort your wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. And I have proof. I pulled out the medical records. Your signature. Your alterations. Your calculated destruction of a viable pregnancy. Those records are falsified, Helen snapped. Lauren, tell them. You witnessed Sarah's instability firsthand. Lauren stepped forward, trembling. All eyes turned to her. But before she could speak, Mark stood up. It's true. All of it. I found Mom's notes. The plans. Everything. Helen's mask cracked. Mark, sit down. She did it before, he continued. To Evan's wife. To others. Anyone who threatened her control over the family. The room erupted in whispers. Helen's face contorted. You ungrateful, she caught herself, smoothing her expression. Ladies and gentlemen, my son is clearly under duress. These accusations are supported by police evidence. James Adams stepped in from the hallway, flanked by 2 detectives. The investigation into the financial fraud led us to the medical records. Helen Mitchell, you're under arrest. Everything happened at once. Helen lunged for the medical records. Someone screamed. I felt hands grabbing me, pulling me back. Through the chaos, I saw Helen's face transform into something feral, desperate. You think this changes anything? She snarled at me. You're still barren. Still worthless. I protected this family from women like you. No, Mother. Evan's voice cut through the room. You destroyed this family. And now everyone knows. As the detectives led Helen away, her composure finally shattered. Mark. Tell them. Tell them why we had to stop her. But Mark wouldn't meet her eyes. Lauren stepped closer to me, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have told you sooner. About everything. I watched Helen disappear through the doors, her perfectly crafted world crumbling around her. Victory should have tasted sweeter. Instead, I felt hollow. Nina found me later, sitting alone in the empty boardroom. You did it, she said softly. It's over. Is it? I touched my stomach, remembering the child that never was. The truth's out. Helen's going to prison. But I still can't. Sarah. Nina knelt beside me. What Helen did was monstrous. But letting it consume you? That's letting her win. Then what was the point of all this? Justice. Closure. She squeezed my hand. But revenge doesn't heal wounds. It just proves you survived them. Outside, camera flashes lit up the darkness. Tomorrow, the Mitchell family scandal would be everywhere. Helen's carefully constructed dynasty would be ashes. But as I sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of so many lives, I wondered if winning felt this empty for Helen too. If her need for control had left her as hollow as my need for revenge. The night air carried the scent of rain. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, nature's applause for a tragedy well played. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Helen sat across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against her pale skin. Looking somehow smaller without her designer clothes and carefully crafted persona. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, hands folded precisely on the metal table. I needed to understand. I placed Lauren's latest ultrasound photo between us. "She's having a girl." Something flickered in Helen's eyes. "And you came to gloat? To show me the grandchild I'll never meet?" "I came to show you what you failed to destroy." I leaned forward. "Lauren's keeping the baby. James is standing by her. Everything you tried to prevent is happening anyway. You think you understand anything?" Her laugh was bitter. "You saw the medical records. The fraud. But did you ever ask why? Because you're a monster? Because I was protecting them." Her mask cracked slightly. "Mark. Evan. This family destroys the women who enter it. Has for generations." I felt the floor shift beneath me. "What are you talking about?" "My mother-in-law did to me what I did to you. 3 times. Her words came faster now. "I lost 3 babies before I learned to play by her rules. To become what she wanted. The perfect wife. The perfect mother. So you became her? Continued the cycle? I became stronger than her." Helen's eyes burned. "I controlled it. Managed it. Protected my boys from women who would weaken them. Like Evan's first wife? She would have ruined him with her independence. Her career ambitions." Helen's fingers twitched. "Like you would have ruined Mark. By wanting a baby? By loving him? By making him depend on you." The words exploded from her. "Strong women destroy weak men. I made my sons strong by keeping them dependent on me." The truth hit like a physical blow. "You're not protecting them. You're caging them. I'm surviving." Her composure cracked completely. "And now Lauren's baby will continue it. Another generation of Mitchell women, destroying themselves to please the family name." I stood up, my chair scraping against concrete. "No. You're wrong." "Am I?" "Look at yourself, Sarah. Look what revenge has made you." "Revenge didn't make me." I placed another photo on the table. Helen's arrest splashed across the morning papers. "You did. Every scheme, every manipulation, every baby you killed made me stronger. Made Lauren stronger. Lauren is weak. She'll fail, just like. She's already succeeded. She's breaking the cycle." I gathered the photos. "And so am I. By walking away? Proving me right? By choosing to heal instead of hate." I met her eyes one last time. "Your granddaughter will never know you. But she'll know your story. As a warning, not a legacy." Helen's facade shattered completely. "Sarah, wait." "Goodbye, Helen." I turned toward the door. "The Mitchell family line of destruction ends with you. You can't just leave me here." Her voice cracked with desperation. "I'm all they have." "No. You're all you have." I nodded to the guard. "And that's your real punishment." Outside, Lauren waited in Nina's car, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Did you get what you needed?" she asked. I watched Helen being led back to her cell through the prison window. "I got something better. Understanding. And I'm done." The words felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding for years. With all of it. The revenge, the anger, the Mitchell family legacy. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. For everything." "I know." I touched her stomach gently. "But she's a new beginning. For both of us." Nina started the car, and as we pulled away from the prison, I caught one last glimpse of Helen through the barred windows. A small figure in orange, trapped in the cage she'd spent a lifetime building. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of healing and hope. Tomorrow, I would call the fertility clinic again. Start fresh. But this time, I'd be carrying something stronger than revenge. I'd be carrying freedom. The nursery walls were a soft green, not pink, not blue, but the color of new leaves in spring. I watched Lauren arrange stuffed animals in the crib while her daughter kicked against my palm. She's strong, I said. Like her aunts. Lauren's smile was tentative, still testing the boundaries of our fragile new friendship. Both of them. The invitation to help decorate the nursery had surprised me. More surprising was how right it felt, this quiet act of healing. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Williams. Test results are in. Come see me? Go, Lauren said, reading my expression. I'll finish up here. The fertility clinic's familiar corridors no longer felt like a battlefield. Dr. Williams waited with a different kind of smile than before. The new treatment protocol is working, she said, sliding the results across her desk. Your body's responding perfectly. I stared at the numbers, remembering Helen's tampering. And there's no chance. I'm personally overseeing everything. She leaned forward. Sarah, you're ready. Whenever you decide to try again. The weight of possibility settled in my chest. Not hope, not yet, but its quiet predecessor. Outside, Evan waited on the clinic steps. We'd been meeting for coffee regularly, a simple routine that had evolved into something neither of us had expected. Good news? He asked. I showed him the results. His hand found mine, warm and steady. I saw Mark yesterday, he said carefully. He's starting therapy. Finally dealing with everything. Good for him. The words held no bitterness, only a distant acknowledgement. He asked about you. And what did you tell him? That you're healing. That we all are. A text from Nina lit up my phone. Lauren's water broke. The hospital waiting room filled quickly. James pacing nervously, Nina documenting everything, Evan's solid presence beside me. Mark arrived last, hovering uncertainly at the edges until James surprisingly waved him over. Hours passed. When the nurse finally appeared, her smile told us everything. Healthy baby girl, she announced. Mother's doing fine. We filed in to meet the newest Mitchell, though she'd carry the Adams name, breaking one more link in Helen's chain. Lauren looked exhausted but peaceful, her daughter tiny and perfect in her arms. Sarah, she said softly. Would you like to hold her? The baby settled into my arms, her weight both foreign and familiar. She opened her eyes, dark and clear, untouched by legacy or pain. What's her name? Mark asked from the doorway. Lauren met my eyes. Hope. Later, in the hospital garden, Evan found me staring at the stars. You okay? I thought revenge would feel like winning, I said. But this feels like freedom. From Helen? From everything. The anger. The need to prove something. I touched my stomach, thinking of Dr. Williams's results. I'm ready to try again. For me this time, not for anyone else's expectations. You won't be doing it alone, he said quietly. A nurse called us back inside. Through the nursery window, I watched Hope sleeping peacefully, unaware of the generations of pain that had led to her existence. My phone buzzed one last time, a collect call from the prison. Helen. I declined it, then deleted her number. Some legacies deserve to end. Some chains need breaking. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, free from the shadows of those who tried to define us. Hope stirred in her sleep, one tiny fist raised like a victory sign. Behind me, Evan waited patiently. Ahead, the future stretched out like an unwritten page. I was done with revenge. Done with the Mitchell family saga. But my own story? That was just beginning. Nina's camera flashed, capturing the moment. not for evidence this time, but for memory. For hope. For proof that even the darkest paths can lead to light, if you're brave enough to keep walking. And I was ready to walk forward, leaving the ashes of revenge behind, carrying only the lessons it had taught me about strength, survival, and the power of choosing your own legacy.
I stared at Adam's phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. The text from his mother glowed accusingly. Found the perfect property, darling. 4 bedrooms upstairs for us, plus that mother-in-law suite we discussed. Lauren will come around once she sees it. My name is Lauren, and I wasn't going to come around to anything. The living room suddenly felt too small, the walls of our apartment closing in like a trap. 3 years of marriage, and somehow I'd missed the signs that my mother-in-law was plotting to merge our households into some twisted multi-generational nightmare. "Hey, babe," Adam's voice drifted from the kitchen. "Have you seen my phone?" I took a screenshot and sent it to myself before placing his phone back on the coffee table. "It's out here." He appeared in the doorway, dish towel in hand, wearing that easy smile that usually made my heart skip. Now it just made my stomach turn. "Thanks. Mom's been trying to reach me about something." "Oh? Anything interesting?" He grabbed his phone, scrolling through messages. I watched his face, waiting for any flicker of guilt or hesitation. Nothing. Just that same pleasant mask he wore whenever he was about to lie to me. Just some real estate stuff she's looking into. Actually. He sat down beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. "I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Mom's thinking about downsizing." "Downsizing into our lives, you mean?" His smile faltered. "It's not like that. She's just floating ideas about pooling our resources. Think about it. We could afford a much nicer place if we combined households." I stood up, needing distance. "When exactly were you planning to consult me about this life-changing decision?" "Lauren, come on. It's just an idea at this stage. An idea you and your mother have clearly been discussing for a while." I pulled out my phone, pulled up the screenshot, and held it in front of his face. "Mother-in-law's suite you discussed? When exactly did that discussion happen, Adam?" Colour drained from his face. "You went through my phone? Don't you dare make this about privacy when you've been planning to ambush me with your mother as a permanent house guest." He ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit I used to find endearing. "It's not an ambush. Mom's lonely since Dad died, and she's not getting any younger. We have to think about the future." "Our future or her future?" "They're connected, Lauren. She's family." I laughed, but there was no humour in it. "Funny how family only matters when it's your side of it. Remember when my dad offered you that position at his company? You turned it down because you didn't want to seem dependent on my family. But moving in with your mother? That's totally different, right?" "That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is you and Evelyn making plans behind my back. What's not fair is you knowing exactly how I'd feel about this and trying to manipulate me into it anyway." My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah asking if we were still on for coffee tomorrow. Perfect timing. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't drowning in the Kool-Aid of Evelyn's manipulation. "I'm going out," I announced, grabbing my keys. "Lauren, wait. We need to talk about this." "No. What you need to do is decide whether you're my husband or your mother's son, because right now you're failing spectacularly at being both." I slammed the door behind me, my hands shaking as I pressed the elevator button. 3 years of marriage, and I'd just discovered I was in a 3-way relationship with my husband and his mother. As the elevator descended, I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. "Coffee tomorrow isn't going to cut it. Wine tonight, emergency." Her response was immediate. Doors open, bottles ready. At least someone in my life had their priorities straight. Sarah's wine-fueled advice from last night still echoed in my head when the doorbell rang at 9 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw Evelyn's perfectly coiffed silver hair and practiced smile. Of course she'd show up unannounced. Of course she'd ignore the 3 unanswered calls from last night. I opened the door, channeling every ounce of corporate politeness I'd learned from my father. "Evelyn." What a surprise. "Lauren, darling." She breezed past me, designer handbags swinging, her perfume leaving a suffocating trail. "I brought those property listings I mentioned to Adam." "Where is my boy?" At work, where I should be in 30 minutes. She settled onto our couch like she was auditioning for a throne. Perfect timing then. We can have a little girl talk. Her eyes swept the living room, lingering on the wine glasses Sarah and I had left out. Though perhaps you should have some coffee first. You look tired. I remained standing. I appreciate you stopping by, but Adam and I haven't finished discussing the housing situation. Oh, but that's why I'm here. She pulled out a thick folder. I've done all the research for you both. This way you don't have to worry your pretty head about the details. The condescension in her voice made my teeth ache. Actually, I do need to worry about the details. It's my life we're talking about. Our lives, dear. Family means thinking beyond ourselves. She patted the couch beside her. Come, sit. Let me show you this gorgeous property in Cedar Hills. The mother-in-law suite has its own entrance, so you'll barely know I'm there. I checked my watch. I really need to get ready for work. Still climbing that corporate ladder? She clicked her tongue. You know, Adam mentions how much he misses home-cooked meals. If we lived together, I could teach you some of his favourites. He practically lived on my pot roast in college. Adam's a grown man who can cook his own meals. I moved toward the door, making my exit strategy clear. And I'm a grown woman who can make her own housing decisions. She stood, clutching her folder like a shield. Lauren, dear, I know you think you're protecting your independence, but marriage is about compromise, about family. Funny, I thought marriage was about partnership and respect. The door opened behind me, and Adam walked in, still in his running clothes. His eyes darted between us, that familiar conflict avoidance expression settling on his face. Mom? What are you doing here? Showing Lauren those properties we discussed. She moved to hug him, shooting me a triumphant look over his shoulder. The one in Cedar Hills is perfect, darling, just like we talked about. I watched my husband's face, waiting for him to correct her, to mention our argument, to show any sign of backbone. Instead, he smiled weakly. Mom, maybe now isn't the best time. Nonsense. Lauren and I were having a lovely chat. She turned to me. Weren't we, dear? The lie sat there, daring me to challenge it. I grabbed my work bag instead. I'm late for a meeting. Adam, we'll talk later. Lauren, he started, but I was already out the door. In the elevator, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. How's the morning after? Ready to set boundaries? I typed back, too late. Hurricane Evelyn just made landfall, with property listings. Sarah's response was immediate. That witch moves fast. Want me to accidentally spill coffee on her at that cafe she likes. Despite everything, I smiled. Then another text came through, this one from my father. Monthly review meeting moved to 10 a.m. Bring the Thompson account numbers. I stared at my father's message, an idea forming. Adam had turned down that job offer because he didn't want to seem dependent on my family. But maybe it was time to use every advantage I had. After all, Evelyn wasn't the only one who could play the long game. I texted back, see you at 10. And Dad, can we talk after? I need your advice on something. Two could play at this game of family loyalty. And unlike Evelyn, I actually had something worth offering, besides pot roast recipes and guilt trips. The realtor's business card fell from Adam's jacket pocket while I was doing laundry. Monica Chen, Cedar Hills Luxury Properties. 3 missed calls from her number lit up his phone when I checked. My hands trembled as I pulled up his calendar. Every Tuesday lunch hour for the past month, blocked off as client meetings. I'd married a liar. The front door clicked open. I stayed in the laundry room, listening to Adam's footsteps, the rustle of his briefcase hitting the counter, the familiar rhythm of his after-work routine. Everything so normal. Everything a lie. Lauren, he called out, you home? I stepped into the kitchen, Monica Chen's card between my fingers. How's Monica? His face went blank, then shifted through confusion, recognition, and finally settled on guilt. I can explain. Please do. Explain why you've been house hunting with your mother behind my back. It's not like that. Mom asked me to look at a few properties. For a month? Every Tuesday? He loosened his tie, buying time. I was going to tell you once we found the right place. Something you'd love. Something I'd love? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my voice at all. You mean something that would make it harder for me to say no? Were you planning to ambush me with a perfect house, hoping I'd be too impressed to remember I never wanted this in the first place? Lauren, please, did Monica show you that mother-in-law suite Evelyn's so excited about? The one with its own entrance so I'll barely know she's there? His eyes widened. You talked to my mother about this? Oh, you mean during her surprise visit this morning? The one where she brought property listings and criticized my cooking? Yeah, we had a lovely chat about your favorite pot roast. Adam slumped against the counter. I'm trying to make everyone happy here. Everyone except me. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photos I'd taken earlier. Want to see what I found today? The mortgage pre-approval letter in your email, the floor plans you and Evelyn have been discussing, the furniture catalogue with your mother's notes about what would look good in our new living room. Each revelation hit him like a physical blow. You went through my email. Funny how that bothers you more than lying to your wife for a month. I wasn't lying, I was... He ran his hands through his hair. Mom's lonely. She's not getting younger. She needs us. No, she needs control. And you're giving it to her at the expense of our marriage. That's not fair. Fair? I slapped the realtor's card on the counter. You know what's not fair? Planning a future that affects my life without including me in the discussion. Making decisions about our marriage with your mother instead of your wife. Lying to my face every Tuesday while you played house with Monica Chen. His phone buzzed, Evelyn's face lighting up the screen. Of course. Go ahead, I said. Answer it. Tell her how unreasonable I'm being. Tell her how I snooped through your things and ruined the surprise. I'm sure she'll have plenty to say about that. Lauren, stop. Let's just talk about this. We're past talking. We're at the point where you need to choose. Are you my husband or her son? Because right now, you're failing at both. I grabbed my keys and bag, already dialing Sarah's number as I headed for the door. Where are you going? Adam called after me. To look at apartments, ones without mother-in-law suites. His phone kept buzzing as I left. I imagined Evelyn's fury when she learned her perfect plan was unraveling. The thought should have given me satisfaction, but all I felt was a hollow ache where trust used to live. Sarah answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Remember when you said I needed to set boundaries? I stepped into the elevator, watching the doors close on my married life. I think I just burned them all down instead. Good, she said firmly. Now let's build some new ones, starting with that spare room I just cleaned out. As the elevator descended, I thought about my father's offer from this morning, the executive position still open in his Singapore office. Adam had made his choice. Maybe it was time I made mine. 3 days at Sarah's apartment had given me enough clarity to return home and pack properly. I hadn't expected to find Evelyn already there, sitting at my kitchen table like she owned it. Adam stood by the window, his posture screaming defeat. Lauren, darling. Evelyn's smile was razor sharp. We've been waiting for you. My house keys clattered against the counter. How did you get in? I gave her a key, Adam said quietly, for emergencies. Of course he had. I moved toward our bedroom, but Evelyn's voice stopped me. We need to talk about your behavior. My behavior. Going through Adam's private communications, making accusations, running away to that friend of yours. She clicked her tongue. It's not healthy, dear. I looked at Adam, waiting for him to defend me. He stared at the floor. I've spoken with Dr. Richards, Evelyn continued. He's an excellent family therapist. Your father-in-law struggled with anxiety too, you know, before he passed. Sometimes we don't realize how our fears affect our judgment. The pieces clicked together. You're trying to make me sound unstable. We're trying to help you, dear. Adams told me how emotional you've been lately. The paranoia about our housing discussions, the accusations of conspiracy. I turned to Adam. Is that what you've been telling her? He finally met my eyes. Mom's worried about you. We both are. Worried enough to give her a key without telling me? To discuss my mental health behind my back? See, Evelyn gestured toward me. This defensive behavior, these persecution delusions. Get out. My voice was steel. Lauren, both of you, get out of my house. Evelyn stood clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Adam, darling, perhaps we should… No. I pulled out my phone. Either you leave now, or I call the police and report you for breaking and entering. I have a key, Evelyn said smugly, given to you without the knowledge or consent of one of the legal residents. Try explaining that to the officers. Adam stepped forward. Lauren, you're overreacting. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, my husband gave his mother unauthorized access to our home and then conspired with her to make me sound mentally unstable. What's next? Having me committed so you can move her in while I'm gone. The flash of guilt across their faces stopped my heart. Oh my God. I backed away from them. You actually considered it. Not like that, Adam protested. Mom just mentioned that if you needed help. If you don't leave right now, I said, my finger hovering over the emergency dial. I'm calling both the police and my father's lawyers. Your choice. Evelyn gathered her dignity around her like a cloak. We're trying to help you, dear. When you're thinking more clearly. Now, they left. Evelyn first. Adam lingering in the doorway. Lauren, please! I slammed the door in his face and doubled over, fighting for breath. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Everything okay? You've been gone a while? With shaking fingers, I replied, Need you to come over. Bring boxes. Lots of them. Then I called my father. Lauren? He answered on the first ring. I was just about to call you about that Singapore position. Dad. My voice cracked. Remember when you said I could always come home if I needed to? A pause. Then, I'll send the car. Pack what you need for now. We'll handle the rest later. I looked around the apartment, my home for 3 years, now tainted by betrayal. On the kitchen table, Evelyn had left a business card. Dr. Richards, family counselling. I flipped it over. She'd written on the back, For your own good, dear. My phone buzzed again. Adam, please come home. We can talk about this. I typed back, You're right. I am emotional. Emotional enough to make sure everyone knows exactly what you and your mother planned. Starting with your boss. Then I blocked his number and started packing. Some things didn't need family therapy to fix. Some things just needed a clean break and a one-way ticket to Singapore. Michael cornered me in the office parking garage 3 days after I'd moved into my father's guest house. Lauren, wait, please. I kept walking, but he matched my stride. Whatever Adam told you. He didn't send me. Michael stepped in front of my car door. But I know what they were planning. The intervention, the therapy, all of it. My hand tightened around my keys and move. You need to know something. Evelyn's been talking to human resources. She's building a case about your mental state affecting your work performance. The world tilted sideways. What? She's friends with Janet in HR. They're documenting every time you've been late, every meeting you've missed, trying to establish a pattern of erratic behavior. I thought of the times I'd rushed to work after Evelyn's surprise visits, the meetings I'd rescheduled while dealing with Adam's deceptions. How long have you known? I overheard them last week at Adam's birthday dinner, the one you missed because you were being difficult. He made air quotes, his face grim. That's when I realized how far this had gone. And you're telling me this now because? Because I saw the paperwork on Janet's desk this morning. They're building grounds for a psychiatric evaluation. Adam's already signed something. My stomach lurched. I fumbled with my phone, pulling up my father's number. Don't! Michael grabbed my wrist. They're watching your communications with your father. Any reaction plays into their narrative of you being unstable. I jerked away from him. Why should I trust you? Because I've known Adam since college and I've never seen him like this. Evelyn's got him convinced she's protecting you from yourself. He actually believes it. My phone buzzed. A text from Adam. Can we talk? Mom's worried about your relationship with your father, says it might not be healthy. Another buzz. Evelyn. Darling, Dr. Richards has an opening tomorrow. Adam and I will pick you up. Delete those, Michael said quietly. Delete everything. Get a new phone, new email. They're documenting everything. I stared at the messages, seeing them with new eyes. Every response could be twisted. every reaction used against me. Why are you helping me? Because I watched Evelyn do this to Adam's father. The concerns about his mental health, the documented episodes, the family therapy that turned into residential treatment. By the time he died, she had control of everything. Cold clarity washed over me. She's not getting control of me. No, Michael agreed. But you need to be smart about this. I have copies of emails between Evelyn and Janet. Text messages about their plans. Adam doesn't know I have them. Evidence, I breathed. Enough to take to the board. But you need to wait. Let them think they're winning. The moment they feel threatened, they'll accelerate their plans. I met his eyes. Why didn't Adam ever tell me about his father? Because he doesn't remember it the way it really happened. Evelyn's very good at rewriting history. My phone buzzed again. Sarah. Emergency, Adam just showed up at my place looking for you. Evelyn's with him. They're talking about some intervention. Go, Michael said. I'll handle them here, but Lauren? He handed me a USB drive. Be careful who you trust. Even your father's company isn't safe until we expose this. I took the drive, feeling its weight like a lifeline. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The worst is coming. Are you ready for that? I thought of Adam's betrayal, of Evelyn's schemes, of the life they'd tried to steal from me. They want to paint me as unstable? Fine. Let's show them what real instability looks like. Michael's smile was grim. Now you're thinking like someone who wants to win instead of just survive. I got in my car, already planning my next move. Evelyn thought she was playing chess, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. In my father's company, I'd learned to play the long game too. And I had nothing left to lose. Time to show them exactly who they were dealing with. The board meeting was supposed to be my moment of triumph. Instead, I stood frozen as Evelyn walked in beside my father, both of them wearing matching expressions of concern. Lauren, Dad said softly, sit down, sweetheart. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket. Michael's evidence, all the carefully gathered proof of Evelyn's manipulation, suddenly seemed childish. Amateur. Because there she sat, perfectly composed, while Janet from HR distributed thick folders to each board member. As you can see, Evelyn began, her voice dripping with maternal concern, the pattern of erratic behaviour has escalated significantly. I looked at my father. Dad, let them finish, Lauren. His eyes were tired, disappointed. Janet clicked through a PowerPoint presentation, screenshots of my texts to Adam, emails to Sarah about Evelyn's schemes, my browser history researching gaslighting and psychological manipulation. All of it twisted, reframed, transformed into evidence of paranoid delusions. The stress of her position, combined with these conspiracy theories about her mother-in-law, Janet paused meaningfully. We're concerned about liability. This is insane. I pulled out the USB drive. I have proof. Of what, dear? Evelyn's smile was gentle, practiced. That I wanted to help my family stay close? That I worried about you working too hard, pushing yourself too far? You manipulated Adam, just like you did to his father. Lauren. Dad's sharp tone cut through the room. That's enough. I looked around the table at faces I'd known for years, people who'd watched me grow up in this company, all of them carefully avoiding my eyes. We've spoken with Dr. Richards, Evelyn continued. He's recommended immediate stress leave, followed by a comprehensive evaluation. The pieces clicked together. You're forcing me out. We're helping you, Dad said. Before you do something you can't take back. I laughed, the sound brittle, like expose how Evelyn manipulated her way into controlling her husband's medical decisions, like revealing how she's doing the same thing to Adam. You see? Evelyn's voice trembled perfectly. These paranoid accusations, these conspiracy theories. Tom, it's exactly what we discussed. Dad nodded slowly. Lauren, either you take voluntary leave and get help, or the board will have to consider more permanent solutions. You believe her? I stared at my father, this man who'd taught me everything I knew about business, about standing my ground. After everything, I believe you're not well. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And I believe I failed you by not seeing it sooner. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. I looked at Michael's empty chair, understanding too late. He'd never intended to help me. This had all been part of their plan, letting me think I had evidence, letting me walk into this meeting thinking I could win. Fine. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. You want me gone? I'm gone. Lauren, please. Dad reached for me. Let us help. Help? I yanked away from him. Like you helped Adam's father? How did that work out for him, Evelyn? For just a moment, her mask slipped. Something cold and calculating flashed in her eyes. Security will escort you out, Janet said smoothly. Your personal items will be forwarded to your father's address. I looked at each face around the table, memorizing them. You know what the funny thing is? You actually think you've won. Lauren, Dad started. I quit. I pulled off my badge, letting it clatter onto the table. And when this all falls apart, when she turns on you like she turns on everyone, remember this moment. Remember you chose this. Security waited by the door. Professional, efficient, ready to remove the unstable element from the equation. I walked out with my head high, Evelyn's voice drifting after me. Poor dear. At least now she can get the help she needs. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone and sent one text to an unlisted number. Plan B. Then I deleted everything, just like Michael had suggested. He'd been right about one thing. I needed to be smart about this. Let them think they'd won. Let them think they'd broken me. They had no idea what I was capable of when I had nothing left to lose. The Singapore contract sat unsigned on my hotel desk when Adam's text arrived. We need to talk. Alone. No lawyers. 3 months of silence. And now he wanted to talk. I checked the time. 2 hours until the board meeting where my father would announce Evelyn's appointment as Chief Operations Officer. 2 hours before they thought they'd won completely. I met Adam at our old coffee shop. He looked terrible, thin, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. You're going to Singapore, he said. Not a question. Funny how news travels. I stirred my untouched coffee. Even to people who've blocked my number. Lauren, please, whatever you're planning. Planning, I smiled. I'm doing exactly what everyone wanted. Getting help, starting fresh, leaving the country. Isn't that the story? His hands shook slightly. Mum's been going through Dad's old medical records. Fascinating hobby. She's changing things, rewriting history. And now, with your father's company, he swallowed hard. I found documents on her computer, plans for restructuring, layoffs. She's going to gut everything once she's COO. I know. He blinked. What? I pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. Emails, bank records, medical documents, all meticulously gathered over 3 months by the private investigator I'd hired. The real reason for my unstable spending that Janet had so carefully documented. Your mother's not the only one who knows how to play the long game. But the board meeting starts in an hour, where your mother will accept her promotion in front of the press, major shareholders, and 2 federal investigators who are very interested in fraudulent medical records and embezzlement. The colour drained from his face. You planned this. No, Adam. Your mother planned this. I'm just better at it. I stood up. You should call your lawyer. He grabbed my wrist. Lauren, wait, I'm sorry for everything. I should have... Should have what? Believed me? Protected me? Been an actual husband instead of your mother's puppet? I pulled away. You're right. You should have. But you didn't. What happens now? Now? Your mother gets arrested for fraud. The company discovers mysterious accounting irregularities under her brief supervision. My father's reputation stays intact because he was deceived by a trusted employee. And you, I smiled. You get to explain to the investigators why your signature is on all those falsified documents. You're destroying us. No, I'm giving you exactly what you wanted, a chance to stay close to your mother. I hear prison visiting hours are very regular. His phone buzzed. Evelyn probably wondering why he wasn't at the office yet. Always keeping tabs, always pulling strings. One more thing, I said, reaching for my bag. Remember Dad's job offer? The one you turned down because you didn't want handouts? Turns out your mother convinced you to refuse because she was already embezzling from her last victim. Couldn't risk you getting too close to the books. Lauren, goodbye, Adam. Give your mother my best. I'm sure orange will suit her perfectly. I walked out into the sunlight, checking my watch. 45 minutes until the board meeting. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Investigators in position. Press tipped off. Ready? I thought about Evelyn's smug smile in that last board meeting. About my father's disappointment. About Adam's betrayal. About all the careful, quiet moments of destruction they'd planned for me. Ready, I typed back. Then I added, save me a seat. I want to watch her face when she realizes nice girls don't always finish last. I flagged down a taxi to the office. My Singapore contract could wait another day. First, I had a front row seat to karma, and I wasn't going to miss a single moment. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just surviving, it's thriving, and making sure everyone who tried to break you has to watch. The Singapore skyline glittered through my office window as I reviewed the morning headlines. Tech CEO's wife sentenced in fraud case. The article featured Evelyn's booking photo, her perfect mask finally cracked, showing the desperation beneath. My phone buzzed. Sarah sending another article. Former executive Adam Chen accepts plea deal. She added, karma's a better revenge than we ever could be. A knock at my door interrupted my response. Miss Chen, your father's here. I'd kept my married name, a small reminder of everything I'd survived. Send him in. Dad looked older now, the past 6 months etched into new lines around his eyes. He carried a familiar folder, the one Evelyn had used in that last board meeting. The investigators finished their final report, he said, placing it on my desk. Thought you should see it first. I didn't open it. How many years did she get? 8. Adam took a deal for 18 months. He sat heavily. Lauren, if I had known. You believed what she wanted you to believe. We all did for a while. Not you. I had more to lose. I gestured at the Singapore office, my new team visible through the glass walls. Or more to gain, depending on how you look at it. He smiled slightly. The board wants you to come home, take over operations now that I am home. I met his eyes. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something better. Your mother used to say something similar. He touched the folder. There's something else. About Adam's father. I know. At his surprised look, I continued. I've had access to all the evidence for months, Dad. Everything Evelyn did, everyone she hurt. That's why I made sure the investigators found it all. You could have exposed her immediately. Why wait? Because quick revenge is just violence. But patience, I smiled. Patience is justice. My phone buzzed again, Michael this time. After his betrayal, I'd kept his number only to track his movements. His message was simple. You won. Completely. I should have picked the right side. I deleted it without responding. The Singapore expansion is exceeding projections, Dad said, changing tactics. But the Home Office has plenty of talented people. I stood, walking to the window, including you. I'm stepping down, Lauren. The board agrees it's time for new leadership. Then find it, but not me. I turned back to him. I built something here, Dad. Something that's mine, not yours or Adam's or Evelyn's. I'm keeping it. He nodded slowly, understanding finally reaching his eyes. You never needed revenge. You needed freedom. Maybe they're the same thing sometimes. Another knock. My assistant with afternoon meetings waiting. Dad stood straightening his tie. Have dinner before I fly back? Next time, I said. I have plans tonight. After he left, I opened my personal email. The message I'd been waiting for had arrived. Confirmation of Adam's father's exhumed autopsy results. One last piece of evidence that would ensure Evelyn's 8 years became 15. I closed the email without forwarding it to the investigators. Some weapons you keep in reserve just in case. Some debts stay on the books, gathering interest. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from an unknown number. I underestimated you. E. I smiled, thinking of Evelyn in her prison cell, finally understanding what real powerlessness felt like. She taught me well in her way. Taught me how to play the long game, how to wait for the perfect moment, how to turn weakness into strength. I deleted her message without responding. Outside my office, my team waited with updates on our latest project. Through the glass, I could see their energy, their drive, their loyalty, earned, not demanded. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they can't touch, becoming someone they can't control, and letting them watch from the sidelines as you thrive without them. I straightened my jacket and opened my office door. Time to get back to work. After all, success is a dish best served daily, with a side of indifference and a view of the future they'll never share.
Money has a way of turning family into strangers. I learned this truth on a Tuesday afternoon, staring at my laptop screen while my coffee grew cold beside me. The numbers didn't lie. $50,000, gone. Just like that. I'm Delilah, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I had my life figured out. The joint savings account Nathan and I built over 12 years of marriage was supposed to be Lucas's college fund. Now it's just a string of red numbers and unauthorized withdrawals. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly as I scrolled through the transaction history. Each withdrawal felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. 3 separate transfers, all to the same unknown account, all within the past month. Mom, can you help me with my science project? Lucas's voice floated down from upstairs, innocent and unaware that his future was evaporating with each revelation on my screen. Just a minute, sweetheart. My voice remained steady, a miracle considering the hurricane brewing inside me. I clicked through to another statement, hoping to find some explanation that wouldn't destroy everything I thought I knew about my husband. My phone buzzed. Nathan's face appeared on the screen, his usual charming smile now seeming like a mask I'd been too blind to see through. I let it ring. Everything okay down there? Lucas appeared at the bottom of the stairs, clutching his project materials. His dark eyes, so much like his father's, watched me with that perceptive gaze that sometimes made me forget he was only 10. Of course. I forced a smile, closing the laptop. Show me what you're working on. As Lucas spread his solar system model across the dining room table, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Megan, Nathan's sister. Her timing was suspicious. It always was. She had a way of inserting herself into our lives at precisely the wrong moments. Aunt Megan's calling, Lucas noted, carefully positioning Jupiter in its orbit. She'll leave a message. I focused on helping him attach the rings around Saturn, but my mind kept circling back to those transactions. Nathan had been spending more time with Megan lately, talking about some investment opportunity she'd discovered. I dismissed my concerns, trusted his judgment. Fool me once. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Through the front window, I spotted Megan's Mercedes in our driveway, its presence as unwelcome as a storm cloud at a picnic. Lucas, why don't you take your project upstairs? I need to talk to Aunt Megan. He gathered his planets slowly, reading the tension in my voice. Is something wrong? Nothing for you to worry about. I kissed the top of his head, watching him disappear upstairs before opening the door. Megan burst in like she owned the place, designer purse swinging from her arm. Why aren't you answering your phone? Nathan's been trying to reach you. Funny you should mention Nathan. I closed the door quietly, conscious of Lucas upstairs. I've just been looking at our bank statements. Something flickered across Megan's perfectly made-up face. Surprise? Fear? Before she composed herself. Oh? And? $50,000, Megan. Gone. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Want to tell me about this amazing investment opportunity you've been discussing with my husband? She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Delilah, you're being dramatic. Nathan knows what he's doing. It's a temporary situation. Get out. The words came out soft but sharp. Excuse me? Get out of my house. I opened the door. And tell my husband he better have a damn good explanation when he gets home. After she left, I stood in the silence of my living room, listening to Lucas humming upstairs as he worked on his project. $50,000. Our safety net, Lucas's future, my trust, all vanished in a series of digital transactions. My phone buzzed again. Nathan. This time I answered. We need to talk, I said before he could speak. Delilah, I can explain everything. Yes, I cut him off. My voice as cold as the coffee I'd left forgotten on my desk. You will. The front door opened at exactly 7:43. I knew because I'd been watching the clock since 6, sitting in the darkness of our living room, waiting. Nathan's footsteps hesitated in the entryway. He must have noticed the absence of dinner smells, the unusual quiet. Delilah? His voice carried that familiar note of charm, the one that had gotten him out of trouble so many times before. Why are you sitting in the dark? I reached over and switched on the lamp. The bank statements lay spread across the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Sit down. He loosened his tie, trying to read my expression. Listen, about those calls. $50,000, Nathan. The words tasted like acid. Were you ever going to tell me, or did you think I wouldn't notice? His face did something complicated. Surprise melting into guilt, then shifting to defensive anger. It's not what you think. Megan found this investment opportunity. Stop. I stood up, my hands shaking. Don't you dare blame your sister for this. You made those transfers. You took our son's college fund. It's temporary. He stepped closer, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. The returns are guaranteed. In 3 months, we'll have double. Double nothing is still nothing. I pushed the latest statement toward him. The account you transferred to doesn't exist anymore. Did you know that? Color drained from his face. That's impossible. Megan says a lot of things. I crossed my arms, fighting the urge to scream. While you were busy playing investor, I called the bank. They're launching a fraud investigation. You did what? His charm vanished entirely now, replaced by something uglier. You had no right? No right? My laugh sounded strange even to me. It's my name on that account too. My years of savings, our son's future. From upstairs came the soft creak of floorboards. Lucas should have been asleep an hour ago. The thought of him listening to this made my chest ache. I can fix this, Nathan insisted, running his hands through his hair. Megan has connections. She knows how to spend other people's money. I picked up my phone, showing him the photos I'd taken earlier. Your sister bought a new Mercedes last week. Funny timing, don't you think? That's different. She got a bonus at work. She got fired 3 months ago. The words hung in the air between us. Greg told me this afternoon. She's been lying to everyone. Nathan sank onto the couch, his world visibly crumbling. No, there has to be some mistake. The only mistake was trusting either of you. I moved toward the stairs, needing to check on Lucas. I've already frozen the remaining accounts. Whatever scheme you and Megan cooked up, it's over. Delilah, wait. He grabbed my arm. We can work this out. For Lucas, I jerked away. Don't you dare use our son as a shield, not after what you've done. Mom? Lucas's voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart. I forced my voice to stay steady. Go back to bed. Nathan stood, straightening his tie like armor. I should talk to Megan, get this sorted out. Of course you should. I headed up the stairs. Run to your sister. It's what you always do. That's not fair. Neither is stealing from your own child. I paused, looking back at him. When you come home tomorrow, bring answers. Real ones. Or don't come home at all. After tucking Lucas back into bed and assuring him everything was fine, another lie to add to the growing pile, I sat in the hallway, listening to Nathan's car start up and drive away. My phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. Are you all right? Nathan just called, sounding upset. I stared at the message, wondering how much she knew about her daughter's schemes. How many other families had Megan destroyed with her promises of easy money? Another text arrived, this one from Greg. We need to talk, about Megan, and the money. I saved his number, a plan already forming. If Megan wanted to play games with other people's lives, she was about to learn she wasn't the only one who knew how to keep secrets. Greg chose the diner on the edge of town, far from the usual places where family might spot us. I found him in a corner booth, his suit wrinkled, tie loosened, a man who hadn't slept well in days. You look like hell, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. You should see my bank account. He pushed a folder across the table. 3 months of statements, different account, same story. Inside were transfer records that mirrored my own, large sums vanishing into phantom investments. But these numbers were bigger, much bigger. 200,000? My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Greg, how? Inheritance from my father. His laugh was hollow. Megan convinced me it was just sitting there, doing nothing, said she had inside information about a tech startup. The waitress appeared with coffee refills. We sat in silence until she left, both staring at the damning papers between us. Nathan doesn't know, does he? Greg asked. About my situation? Nathan doesn't know much these days. I traced the rim of my cup. He's still defending her, thinks this is all some misunderstanding. It's not. Greg leaned forward, lowering his voice. Last week I followed her to a meeting, not with investors, with a gambling addiction counselor. She missed the appointment, went shopping instead. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Where are you? We need to talk. I ignored it. How long has this been going on? The gambling? Years, probably. But the stealing? Greg rubbed his face. I found old accounts, Delilah, other families, other investments. She's been doing this since before we were married. The diner's fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, the air too thin. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only one who might help me stop her. He pulled out another document, a police report. I tried going to the authorities. She convinced them I authorized everything, even showed them signed papers. Did you sign them? No. His hands clenched, but they look real enough. My phone buzzed again. Megan this time. Family dinner tonight. Mother insists. Don't make things difficult. She's planning something, I said, showing Greg the message. Your wife never arranges family dinners unless she wants an audience. Then maybe it's time she had one. Greg's expression hardened. I have more documents at home, records of where the money really went, casino receipts, luxury purchases, all while she claimed to be investing our savings. The waitress returned with our check. As I reached for my wallet, Greg stopped me. There's something else. He hesitated. Megan's been talking to Lucas's school, asking about his college fund, claiming to be handling the family's educational planning. The world tilted sideways. She what? The school called me by mistake, thinking I was Nathan. They mentioned scholarship opportunities she was exploring, ways to restructure his educational savings. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, this time to call the school. The administrator confirmed everything. Megan had visited twice, presenting herself as Lucas's financial advisor. I'll kill her, I whispered, ending the call. If she touches my son's future. We need to be smarter than that. Greg's voice was steady. I have a plan, but you'll have to trust me, and we'll need help. Another text buzzed through. Evelyn asking if I was coming to dinner. Sweet, trusting Evelyn, who still believed her daughter could do no wrong. What kind of help? I asked, already knowing the answer. Your mother-in-law sits on 3 charity boards. She has connections, influence. If she knew the truth about where her daughter's donations really came from. I stared at the documents between us, thinking of Lucas, of Nathan's blind loyalty, of Megan's perfectly crafted lies. She'll never believe us without proof. Then let's give her proof. Greg gathered the papers. Tonight, at dinner, in front of everyone. My phone lit up one final time. Nathan again. Please come home. We can fix this. I typed back 3 words. See you tonight. Looking up at Greg, I nodded. Let's end this. The family dinner invitation felt like a summons to an execution. Mine or Megan's, I wasn't sure yet. I spent the afternoon in my office, staring at Greg's documents while my colleagues buzzed around me like nothing had changed. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Photos. My stomach dropped as I opened them. Nathan and Megan entering a lawyer's office together. Yesterday's timestamp. Another photo. Them leaving an hour later, Megan clutching a thick envelope. A text followed. Thought you should know. E. Evelyn. Of course she had people watching her own children. I'd underestimated her all these years. My desk phone rang. Lucas's school. Again. Mrs. Parker, we wanted to confirm the transfer paperwork submitted this morning. My grip tightened on the receiver. What transfer paperwork? For Lucas's withdrawal. The forms indicate he'll be changing schools next month. They're signed by both parents, but protocol requires verbal confirmation. The room tilted sideways. I steadied myself against the desk. I never signed anything. Silence crackled over the line. The signatures appear legitimate. Perhaps you should discuss this with your husband. I hung up, hands shaking. My computer pinged. An email from Greg with more documents attached. Bank records showing Megan had opened accounts in 3 different states. A pattern emerged. Gain trust, secure investments, vanish, repeat. Nathan's name appeared on several transfers. Not just recent ones. He knew. He'd always known. My office door opened. Speaking of devils, Megan stood there in designer clothes that probably cost more than what she'd stolen from us. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "About tonight's dinner." I minimized Greg's email. "I'm busy." "Too busy to discuss Lucas's future?" She perched on the edge of my desk, all calculated casualness. "Nathan tells me you're being difficult about the investment opportunity." "Difficult?" I looked up at her, really looked. The perfect makeup couldn't hide the tension around her eyes, the slight tremor in her manicured hands. "Is that what you call protecting my son from theft?" "Family helps family, Delilah." Her voice hardened. "Nathan understands that. Why can't you? Does Greg understand? About the gambling? The other families you've stolen from?" She flinched, barely noticeable, but there. "I don't know what you think you know." "I know about the lawyer's office yesterday." I showed her Evelyn's photos. "I know about the transfer papers for Lucas's school. Tell me, did you forge my signature or did Nathan do it for you?" "You're making a mistake." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "Tonight's dinner isn't just dinner. Mother's announcing changes to her will. Family loyalty matters more than ever." The threat hung between us, clear as crystal. Play along or lose everything. "You know what's interesting about fraud investigations?" I kept my voice level. "They love paper trails, records, patterns." "Are you threatening me?" "No." I smiled, channeling her own practiced casualness. "I'm promising you something. Whatever you and Nathan are planning, it ends now, or everyone learns the truth, starting with Evelyn, tonight." She laughed, but fear flickered in her eyes. "You'd destroy this family over money." "You already did that." I turned back to my computer. "See you at dinner, Megan." After she left, I called Greg. "Change of plans. We move now, not tonight." "What happened?" "They're trying to transfer Lucas to another school, and Evelyn's changing her will." Silence then. "Check your email. One last document came through. You need to see this before we do anything." I opened the attachment. A trust fund statement in Lucas's name, established by Nathan and Megan 3 years ago. Empty now. They hadn't just stolen his college fund. They'd been planning this for years. My phone buzzed. "Nathan, taking Lucas to Mom's early. Meet us there?" I stared at the message, ice spreading through my veins. They weren't just after money anymore. They wanted my son. "Greg," I said into the phone, "how quickly can you get to Evelyn's house?" 20 minutes. Why?" "Because I'm done waiting for dinner." Evelyn's house loomed ahead, all Victorian grandeur and manicured gardens. Greg's car was already parked out front, but Nathan's wasn't. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as I pulled into the driveway. The front door opened before I reached it. Evelyn stood there, elegant as always, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Lucas isn't here," she said before I could ask. "Nathan called. They're running late." Running. The word hit like a punch. Did he say where they were? The school, I believe. Something about paperwork. She studied my face. "You didn't know?" I pushed past her into the house, pulling out my phone. Greg appeared from the study, holding a stack of documents. "Show her," I said to him. "Everything." Evelyn's confusion shifted to concern as Greg laid out the evidence on her antique dining table. Bank statements, forged documents, photos of Megan's secret meetings. "Mother," Megan's voice cut through the room. She stood in the doorway, perfectly poised despite the storm brewing around her. "Don't let them poison you against me." "Explain the other families?" Greg's voice was ice. "The ones before us? Or should we start with Lucas's empty trust fund?" Color drained from Evelyn's face. "What trust fund?" My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Taking Lucas to dinner first, don't worry. They're not at the school, I said, showing them the message. He's lying, again. Megan stepped forward, reaching for the documents. This is ridiculous. Mother, they're trying to manipulate you before the will reading. The will? Evelyn's laugh was bitter. You think this is about money? She walked to her desk, pulled out a folder. I changed my will last month, left everything to Lucas, in a trust, one that neither of his parents can touch. The silence that followed was deafening. Megan's perfect mask cracked. You knew? She whispered. I've always known. Evelyn's voice trembled. About the gambling, the stolen money. I thought if I protected Lucas's inheritance, it would force you both to stop. My phone buzzed again. An email from the school principal. Nathan had withdrawn Lucas an hour ago. Destination, unknown. The room spun. They're running, with my son. Greg was already on his phone, speaking rapidly to someone. Evelyn gripped the back of a chair, her knuckles white. Megan, she said, where would Nathan take him? I don't. Megan's composure crumbled entirely. The airport, maybe? We have tickets, just in case. In case what? I advanced on her. In case your latest scheme fell apart? In case the truth came out? In case we needed options. She backed away. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Nathan was just supposed to convince you to invest more. Keep the money flowing until what? Greg's voice cut through her excuses. Until you'd bled us all dry? My phone lit up again. A photo from Nathan. Lucas asleep in the backseat of the car. The message below it froze my blood. He's safer with family who understand loyalty. Evelyn read the message over my shoulder. Without a word, she walked to her safe, opened it, and pulled out a phone I'd never seen before. I didn't want to believe it would come to this, she said, dialing a number. Detective Morris, it's time. Megan's face went ash white. Mother, no. Years ago, Evelyn continued, ignoring her daughter's plea, I hired someone to watch my children, to document everything, every transaction, every lie. She looked at Megan, every victim. My phone buzzed one final time. An alert from my banking app. Another transfer initiated, the last of our savings. They're going to take everything, I realized, unless we stop them now. Greg's hand found mine, squeezed once. We will. Evelyn hung up the phone, her voice steel. Detective Morris has units tracking Nathan's car, but we need to move fast. She looked at Megan. Unless you'd like to tell us where your brother's really taking my grandson? Megan sank into a chair, mascara tracking down her cheeks. I can't. Then I hope you're ready for what comes next, I said, heading for the door, because I'm done playing family. Detective Morris's voice crackled over the speaker. We've located Nathan's car at Marina Point. No sign of them yet. I gripped the passenger seat as Greg sped through traffic, Evelyn's SUV following close behind. Marina Point, where Nathan proposed 12 years ago, where we'd taken Lucas for his first boat ride. He's playing games, I said, checking my phone again. No new messages, just that last photo of Lucas sleeping. He wants me to remember the good times. Or he's trying to distract us. Greg's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Megan always said they had a backup plan, something about their father's old property. My phone rang. Nathan. Where is he? I demanded. Safe. His voice was eerily calm. Which is more than I can say for our savings. Did you really think freezing the accounts would stop us? Us. The word tasted bitter. You and your sister against your own son? I'm protecting him, from you, from your lies. A pause. Check your email. New message, video footage from our home security camera. Me and Greg meeting in secret, planning, talking about evidence. Looks suspicious, doesn't it? Nathan's voice hardened. The grieving wife, conspiring with her brother-in-law. What would Lucas think? You bastard? Language, dear. Lucas can hear you. My heart stopped. Put him on. Mom? Lucas's voice was small, confused. Dad says we're going on a trip, but I don't want... The call cut off. Greg cursed, swerving around a slow car. They're not at the marina. It's another trick. My phone buzzed again. An email from our bank. Account closed. Transfer complete. They've taken everything. My voice sounded distant, hollow. The last of our savings, Lucas's college fund. Delilah. Greg's tone changed. Look. Nathan's car sat empty in the marina parking lot, driver's door open. On the passenger seat, Lucas's backpack. Detective Morris's cruiser pulled up beside us, lights flashing. We've got officers searching the docks. No boats have left in the last hour. I grabbed Lucas's backpack, hands shaking. Inside, his phone, turned off, his favorite book, a note in Nathan's handwriting. Remember our first sailing lesson? The boathouse, I breathed. The private one where he kept his father's old sailboat. Greg was already moving, but Evelyn's voice stopped us. Wait. She stood by her car, holding her phone. Megan just texted. Says if we involve the police, we'll never see Lucas again. Detective Morris stepped forward. Mrs. Parker, we can... No. I handed him Lucas's backpack. They're watching. They'll run if they see uniforms. Then what's your plan? Evelyn asked. My phone lit up with another message. A photo of Lucas on a boat, not at the marina, but somewhere else. Somewhere with trees reflecting in dark water. The lake house, Greg said suddenly. Their father's property. It's only accessible by water. That's 40 minutes from here, Detective Morris protested. Then we better hurry. I turned to Evelyn. Keep Megan talking. Make her think we're still searching the marina. And the police? I met Detective Morris's eyes. Give us an hour. After that, I couldn't finish. Greg and I ran to his car. As we pulled away, another message arrived. A video. Lucas sitting between Nathan and Megan on a boat, forcing a smile as Nathan pointed the camera at him. Wave to Mom, Nathan's voice said. Tell her about our adventure. Lucas's eyes met the camera, and for a second I saw fear. Real fear. Mom, he said carefully, remember when you taught me about chess? About thinking 3 moves ahead? The video cut off. Chess, Greg muttered. What's that supposed to mean? But I understood. Lucas's message wasn't for me. It was a warning. Nathan and Megan weren't running. They were setting a trap. My phone buzzed one final time. Nathan again. Coming to the lake house would be a mistake. But you will anyway, won't you? For Lucas. For revenge. Choose wisely. Greg glanced at me. We're walking into a trap. Yes, I said, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. We are. Because sometimes the only way to win is to spring the trap, to let them think they've broken you completely, even if, in the end, they have. The lake house emerged from the darkness like a forgotten memory, its windows glowing amber against the night. Greg cut the headlights as we approached, gravel crunching under the tires. Their car's here, he whispered, and Megan's. A figure moved past a window, Nathan pacing. Through another, I caught a glimpse of Lucas sitting at the kitchen table, head bent over what looked like homework, playing normal like this was just another family evening. My phone vibrated. Evelyn, police are 20 minutes out. Megan suspects nothing. Ready? Greg asked, checking his phone, the recording app active, catching every sound. I nodded, stepping out into the cold air. The lake stretched behind the house like black glass, reflecting nothing. Nathan opened the door before we reached it. Right on time. His smile was all wrong. Lucas, look who's here. Lucas's head snapped up, relief flooding his face before Megan's hand landed on his shoulder, keeping him seated. Family reunion, she said, her perfect makeup unable to hide the strain around her eyes. How sweet. Where's the money, Megan? Greg's voice was ice. Safe. She squeezed Lucas's shoulder. Unlike some things. Mom, Lucas said carefully, I finished my math homework. All the numbers add up now. Nathan frowned. What? The numbers? I cut in, understanding Lucas's message. Like the offshore account numbers in your father's old files? The ones you thought Evelyn didn't know about? Megan's composure cracked. What files? The ones Detective Morris is reviewing right now. I stepped forward. Every transaction, every victim, every lie. You're bluffing. But Nathan's charm was slipping. Mother doesn't what? Evelyn's voice rang from the doorway. Know about the gambling debts, the other families you've destroyed? Or how about the real reason your father changed his will before he died? Megan released Lucas, turning pale. You can't prove... The recording app on my phone says otherwise. Greg held up his device. Been running since we arrived, and before that, every conversation for the past week. Lucas suddenly stood, knocking his water glass onto Megan's designer purse. As she jumped back, papers spilled out, bank statements, transfer records. Sorry, Aunt Megan, he said, not sounding sorry at all. Mom taught me chess, remember? Always think ahead. Nathan lunged for the papers, but Greg was faster. In the chaos, Lucas darted away from the table, running to my side. It's over, I said, holding my son close. The police have everything. The offshore accounts, the forged documents, all of it. You don't understand, Nathan's voice cracked. We had no choice. The debts were yours, Megan snapped. Your gambling, your mistakes. I just tried to fix them. By stealing from your own family, Evelyn stepped fully into the room. By destroying your nephew's future, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. No, Megan grabbed her car keys. This isn't happening. Nathan. But Nathan stood frozen, staring at Lucas, at the son he'd tried to use as leverage. I thought I was protecting him. From what? Lucas asked, his voice small but steady. From Mom? Or from knowing what you really are? Red and blue lights flooded the windows. Detective Morris's voice boomed through a megaphone. House is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. Megan broke first, running for the back door. Greg caught her arm as Nathan sank into a chair, all fight gone. You know what the worst part is? I said, watching my husband crumble. I would have helped you, if you'd just told the truth. Truth, he laughed bitterly. When has this family ever dealt in truth? Starting now, Evelyn said as officers entered the house, whether you like it or not. Lucas pressed closer to my side as the police led Nathan and Megan away. Mom, is it really over? I looked at my son, seeing strength where there used to be innocence. At Greg, who'd risked everything to expose the truth. At Evelyn, who'd finally chosen justice over loyalty. Almost, I said, holding him tighter. But we're going to be okay. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about saving what matters most, even if you have to break everything else to do it. The courthouse steps felt colder than they should in spring. I watched Lucas climb them beside me, his tie slightly crooked, looking more grown up than any 10-year-old should. Ready? I asked. He nodded, glancing at the manila envelope in my hands, the final divorce papers, waiting for signatures. Inside, Nathan sat with his lawyer, his once charming smile replaced by something more genuine. Regret. Real regret, finally. Megan's seat beside him was empty. She'd taken a plea deal last week, trading information about other victims for a lighter sentence. Lucas. Nathan stood as we approached. I didn't think. I wanted to come, Lucas said, straightening his tie. Mom said it was my choice. Greg arrived with Evelyn, carrying more documents, the restoration agreements, the victim compensation forms, the price of betrayal, measured in dollars and cents. Before we start, Nathan said, there's something you should know. He pulled out an old leather journal. Dad's records, the complete ones. There are more accounts, more victims than Megan admitted to. Evelyn took the journal, her hands trembling slightly. You had this all along? I thought I was protecting the family legacy. His laugh was hollow. Some legacy. The proceedings moved quickly after that. Signatures, statements. The formal dissolution of promises once thought unbreakable. Through it all, Lucas watched, taking everything in with those observant eyes. There's one more thing, I said when it was done. From my bag, I withdrew a chess set, the one Lucas and I used to play with. This belongs to you now. Nathan stared at it, understanding dawning. The game you taught him. About thinking ahead. About consequences, Lucas corrected, touching one of the pieces. About protecting what matters. The door opened, and Detective Morris entered with more files, more evidence, more families to contact and compensate. It never really ends, does it? Greg asked quietly. No, Evelyn said, still holding her husband's journal. But we can choose how we face it. Nathan stood to leave, pausing beside Lucas. I'm sorry, he said. Not just for the money, for forgetting what family really means. Lucas looked up at his father, then at me. Mom says forgiveness is earned, not given. Smart woman, your mother? Nathan managed a sad smile. Maybe someday. He left before finishing the thought, shoulders bent under the weight of consequences finally faced. Outside, spring sun warmed the courthouse steps. Lucas ran ahead to where Greg waited by the car, leaving me with Evelyn. I have a confession, she said, opening the journal. I knew about Nathan's gambling, years ago. I thought if I just gave him enough chances. We all wanted to believe in second chances. And now? I watched Lucas showing Greg his newly straightened tie, proud of this small achievement. Now we believe in first steps instead. My phone buzzed. A text from the bank. The recovery of funds had begun. Not everything, but enough. Enough to start over. He'll try to come back, Evelyn said. When he served his time, made amends. Nathan was always good at comebacks. Maybe. I touched the chess piece in my pocket, the queen I'd kept. But this time we'll be ready. All of us. Lucas called from the car, eager to get to his chess club meeting. Some things hadn't changed. Some things never should. You know what the hardest part is? I told Evelyn as we walked toward the car. Realizing that revenge wasn't what I really wanted. Justice wasn't even enough. What was it then? I watched Lucas arrange his chess pieces on the car's back seat, planning his next game, his next move. Always thinking ahead now. Truth, I said. Just truth. Everything else follows from there. Evelyn squeezed my hand, understanding in her eyes. And the legacy? The family name? We'll build a new one. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. One choice at a time. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about getting free, and teaching your children to do the same.
The magazine feels heavier than it should, like it's made of lead instead of glossy paper. My brother Ryan's perfect smile beams from the cover of Business Elite, his carefully styled hair and tailored suit screaming success. Thompson Air takes tech world by storm, the headline declares. I trace my finger over the embossed letters, wondering if they'll cut deep enough to draw blood. My name is Mila, and I'm the invisible Thompson. Darling, there you are. Mother's voice rings across our mansion's marble foyer. Have you seen the magazine? Isn't your brother absolutely magnificent? I turn slowly, clutching my own letter behind my back, the one announcing my nonprofit's successful expansion into 3 new cities. Yes, Mother. Very magnificent. We're having a celebration dinner tonight. The whole board will be there. She adjusts her pearl necklace, a nervous tic I've observed since childhood. Do wear something appropriate. That last dress you chose for the charity gala was rather pedestrian. I have a meeting tonight with potential investors. Oh, reschedule that little project of yours. This is family. She waves her hand dismissively. Your father's already ordered Ryan's favorite champagne. The letter crumples in my fist. Bright Futures isn't a little project. We've helped over 1,000 underprivileged kids. Yes, very noble. She checks her reflection in the hallway mirror. But really, Mila, playing social worker isn't quite the same as running a multi-million-dollar corporation, is it? Something snaps inside me. You're right, Mother. It's not the same. I'm actually making a difference instead of just making money. Her perfectly penciled eyebrows arch. Don't be bitter, dear. It doesn't suit you. Now, dinner's at 7. Do something with that hair of yours. She clicks away on her designer heels, leaving me standing there with my crumpled achievement in one hand and my brother's success story in the other. I walk to Father's study, hearing voices through the heavy oak door. Ryan's numbers are concerning, Father's voice, grave and low. The tech division is hemorrhaging money. David, he just needs time, Mother responds. And perhaps additional resources. Mila's trust fund could cover the shortfall. She's not using it anyway, just throwing money at that charity project. The magazine slips from my fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. They both fall silent. I push the door open, meeting their startled faces. My trust fund. Mila, Father straightens in his leather chair. This is a private conversation. About my money. My voice sounds strange, distant. To bail out Ryan's mistakes. Mother steps forward, arms outstretched. Darling, you don't understand business. I understand perfectly. The letter in my hand unfolds, revealing the impressive statistics of my organization's growth. While you've been propping up your golden child, I've built something sustainable. Something that matters. Now see here, father rises, his face flushing. Your brother is carrying on the Thompson legacy. By running it into the ground? The words taste like venom. Go ahead, take my trust fund. But remember this moment, when you chose to rob your daughter to save your son's ego. I turn to leave, but mother grabs my arm. You're being dramatic. Family supports family. Funny. I pull away from her grasp. I don't remember getting much support when I started Bright Futures. In fact, I remember you calling it my little hobby. Mila, father starts, but I'm already walking away. Enjoy your celebration dinner, I call over my shoulder. I have an empire of my own to build. I close the study door behind me, my heart pounding against my ribs. They want my trust fund? Fine. But they're about to learn that the overlooked Thompson daughter has inherited something far more valuable than money, determination. And revenge, I'm discovering, is an excellent motivator. Grace's apartment always feels like a sanctuary, especially tonight. She hands me a glass of wine and settles onto her worn leather couch, her dark eyes studying my face. So you just walked out? What else could I do? I take a long sip. They're planning to raid my trust fund to save Ryan's mess. Again. Jesus. She tucks her legs under her. And the celebration dinner? Probably still going on. Mother's likely explaining my absence as Mila being difficult while they toast Ryan's magazine cover. My phone buzzes, another message from Mother. I silence it without looking. You know what the worst part is? I stand, pacing Grace's small living room. Ryan's actually terrible at his job. The tech division's failing, and they're throwing good money after bad just to maintain the illusion of the perfect son. Grace leans forward. How do you know about the tech division? Overheard, father. But I've been watching the company's quarterly reports. The numbers don't lie, even if my family does. My phone lights up again, Ryan this time. I answer it on speaker, if only to prove a point to Grace. Where are you? His words slur slightly. Mother's upset. Mother's always upset when I don't play my assigned role. Don't be like that, Mills. He hiccups. Just come to dinner. Everyone's asking about you. No, they're not. They're asking about you, your magazine cover, your company. I pause. How's the tech division doing, by the way? Silence crackles over the line. That's what I thought. I end the call, turning to Grace. See, what are you going to do? Before I can answer, my phone rings again. Father's name flashes on the screen. I answer it, my voice steady. Yes, your behavior is unacceptable. His tone carries that familiar disappointment. You've embarrassed your mother and upset your brother. Funny how my feelings never factor into these family equations. This isn't about feelings, Mila. This is about family loyalty. I laugh, the sound sharp enough to make Grace wince. Loyalty? Is that what you call stealing my trust fund to cover Ryan's mistakes? We are not stealing anything. We're reallocating family resources. They're not family resources, father. That money is mine. Grandmother left it to me specifically. Your grandmother wouldn't want to see the family business fail. No, I cut him off. She wouldn't. Which is why I'm going to save it my way. What are you talking about? I'm calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. As a major shareholder, it's my right. Mila, his voice holds a warning. 9 a.m. sharp, father. Don't be late. I hang up, my hands shaking. Grace whistles low. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. I sink back onto the couch. But I'm done being the family afterthought. If they want to play with my money, they'll have to play by my rules. My phone chimes with a text from Ryan. Whatever you're planning, don't. Please. Grace reads it over my shoulder. He sounds scared. He should be. I forward the quarterly reports to my laptop. By tomorrow morning, the board will know exactly how their golden boy has been running their company into the ground. And then what? I meet her gaze. Then I offer them an alternative. A merger between Thompson Tech and Bright Futures, creating a socially responsible tech initiative that actually helps people instead of just lining shareholders' pockets. They'll fight you. Let them. I pull up the company bylaws on my phone. Grandmother didn't just leave me money, she left me voting shares. Equal to Ryan's. Father's been keeping that quiet, but tomorrow everyone finds out. Grace touches my arm. This could tear your family apart. No, I say, thinking of all the dismissive comments, the missed achievements, the years of being overshadowed. They did that themselves. I'm just making it official. My phone lights up one last time. Mother, whatever you're planning, remember you're a Thompson. I type back. For the first time, Mother, that's exactly what I'm counting on. The Thompson Industries boardroom feels colder than I remember. 14 pairs of eyes follow me as I walk to the podium, my heels clicking against marble floors that have witnessed decades of family legacy. Father sits at the head of the table, his jaw clenched. Ryan slumps beside him, looking like he hasn't slept. The quarterly reports speak for themselves, I say, gesturing to the screens displaying the damning numbers. The tech division has lost 40% of its value in 6 months. These are internal matters, Father interrupts, his voice sharp. This meeting is unnecessary. Is it unnecessary that my brother authorized 3 failed acquisitions without board approval? I click to the next slide. Or that he's been hiding the losses by moving money between subsidiaries? The room erupts in murmurs. Ryan's face drains of color. Miss Thompson, Bernard Walsh, our longest-serving board member, leans forward. These are serious allegations. They're not allegations. I distribute folders containing detailed documentation. They're facts. Facts that certain parties hope to cover up using my trust fund. Mother bursts through the boardroom doors, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. This meeting is adjourned. Actually, I say, it's not. I have the floor. You have no right. I have every right. I pull out grandmother's will. As equal shareholder to Ryan, with voting rights that match his. Father stands so quickly his chair scrapes against the floor. That document is private. Was private, I correct him. Just like Ryan's mismanagement was private. But secrets have a way of coming out, don't they? The boardroom falls silent. I can hear Mother's pearls clicking as she fidgets. I move to suspend Ryan Thompson from his position as CEO, I announce, pending a full audit. Second, Walsh says quietly, "You can't do this," Ryan finally speaks, his voice cracking. "I'm your brother." "Yes, you are." I meet his gaze. Which is why I'm also proposing a solution. A merger between Thompson Tech and Bright Futures. Father laughs, but it sounds hollow. Your little charity project? My successful social enterprise that's actually turning a profit. I distribute another set of documents. Unlike the tech division. The board members flip through the papers, their expressions shifting from skepticism to interest. This is ridiculous, Mother declares. The Thompson name will be strengthened, I cut in, by showing we care about more than just profit margins. Ryan stands abruptly, swaying slightly. I need air. He stumbles toward the door. Meeting in recess, Walsh announces. 10 minutes. I find Ryan in our father's office, drinking straight from a crystal decanter. A bit early, isn't it? Come to gloat. He doesn't turn around. No. I close the door. Come to understand why you let it get this bad. You don't know what it's like, he says, his words slurring. Being the chosen one. The golden child. Do you know how terrifying it is to know you can't live up to it? Actually, I do. I take the decanter from his hands. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm worth noticing. He looks at me then, really looks at me, maybe for the first time in years. I'm drowning, Mills. I know. I set the decanter down. Let me help. By taking over? By humiliating me? By saving what's left of both our legacies? I pull out my phone, showing him bright future success metrics. We could do something that matters, Ryan. Together. He stares at the screen, then at me. Why would you help me after everything? Because you're my brother. I pause. And because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone, it's about forcing them to see the truth. The boardroom door opens. Father stands there, looking older than I've ever seen him. They're ready to vote. Ryan straightens his tie, his hands shaking slightly. What do? We go back in there, I say, and we show them what the Thompson siblings can do when we stop competing and start collaborating. He nods, then hesitates. Mila? I'm sorry. For everything. Prove it, I say, holding the door open. Starting now. The board's decision hangs in the air like smoke. Thompson Tech and Bright Futures will merge, with shared leadership between Ryan and me. Victory should taste sweeter than this. Father corners me in the elevator after the meeting. I have a counterproposal. The board already voted. A position for you. Senior Vice President, directly under Ryan. Better salary, better benefits. He adjusts his tie. Keep the family united. The elevator feels smaller suddenly. You're trying to buy me off? I'm trying to protect this family. The doors open to the executive floor. Think about it. Carefully. I step out, but he catches my arm. Your mother's health isn't what it used to be, Mila. This stress. Consider that. The doors close on his perfectly composed face, leaving me with the weight of that subtle threat. Grace meets me at our usual cafe, but I can barely touch my coffee. He's using mother as emotional leverage? Classic Thompson manipulation. I push the cup away. But that's not what worries me. What then? Ryan's been too quiet. After the board meeting, he just disappeared. My phone buzzes, an email from an anonymous account. The attachment makes my blood freeze. Internal documents showing Bright Futures funding sources, including several that would raise regulatory eyebrows. What is it? Grace leans over. Someone's been digging. I show her the screen. These donations. I had no idea they came from shell companies. Could it hurt Bright Futures? It could destroy everything I've built. My hands shake as I scroll through the data. The merger would expose all of this to auditors. A text from Ryan appears, Father's office. Now, I find them both there, Ryan looking haunted, Father behind his desk like a judge at sentencing. Close the door, Father says. Ryan won't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Mills. I had to tell him. Tell him what? Father slides a folder across his desk. Your friend Marcus Chin? The one who helped secure those major donations for Bright Futures last year. What about him? He works for our competitors. Those donations? Designed to gather intelligence on Thompson Tech's vulnerabilities. Father's voice is eerily calm. Intelligence your brother says you helped provide. The accusation hits like a physical blow. That's not. We have the emails, Mila. Ryan finally looks up. You met with him 12 times last year. He was helping me network for Bright Futures. He was using you. Father stands. And now you've given our competitors everything they need to destroy us. The pieces click together. Marcus's pointed questions about Thompson Tech, his generous introductions to donors, his interest in my family dynamics. Take the VP position, Father says. We'll bury this, protect Bright Futures, keep the family intact. And the merger? Dies quietly. For everyone's good. I look at Ryan, see the desperation in his eyes. He needs this merger as much as I do, but fear has always been Father's most effective weapon. You have until tomorrow morning, Father adds. Choose wisely. Outside his office, Ryan grabs my arm. Mila, wait. I yank away. You knew about Marcus for how long? A month. Father made me track your meetings after the first merger proposal. So much for solidarity. I'm trying to protect you. No, I step back. You're protecting yourself. Like always. My phone buzzes again, another anonymous email. This time, it's Thompson Tech documents showing Father's own questionable dealings, dating back years. A text follows, thought you could use some leverage. Marcus. Playing both sides all along. I look back at Ryan, still hovering anxiously. Tell Father I'll have my answer in the morning. What are you going to do? I think of Father's threat, of Ryan's betrayal, of Marcus's games. Something nobody expects. Because that's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. People never see you coming until it's too late. The investors filling Thompson Industries' conference room look exactly like Father's crowd, old money, press suits, and expressions that say they've already decided against me. I grip my presentation remote tighter, trying to ignore Mother's pointed absence and Ryan's nervous fidgeting in the corner. Thompson Revive represents more than just a merger, I say, clicking to the next slide. It's a complete reimagining of what corporate responsibility can look like. Ambitious, Charles Whitman interrupts, his tone suggesting he means naive. But the Thompson name has always represented traditional values. Traditional values lost 40% of shareholder value this quarter. The words come out sharper than intended. Ryan flinches. Miss Thompson, another investor leans forward. Your charitable work is admirable, but this is business. Bright Futures turned a profit in its first year, I counter, while implementing sustainable practices and community programs that, through questionable funding sources, Father's voice cuts through the room as he enters. I apologize for my tardiness, but I've just received some concerning information about Bright Futures' financial backing. My heart stops. He wouldn't dare. Perhaps, Father continues, settling into his chair, we should discuss these irregularities before proceeding. The room temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. I feel the investor's eyes shift, their judgment crystallizing. Any irregularities, I say carefully, would pale in comparison to certain historical Thompson tech transactions. I meet Father's gaze. Shall we discuss those too? His expression doesn't change, but his knuckles whiten against the armrest. I have full documentation, I continue, of every Bright Futures transaction. Transparent and legitimate. Unlike some other company records I've recently discovered. Ryan stands abruptly. Mila. Sit down, Ryan. Father's voice could freeze hell. I click to the next slide. Profit projections for Thompson Revive. My proposal saves both companies and creates something stronger. Something honest. By exposing family secrets, Father's question carries a weight only I understand. By ending them, the room fills with murmurs. I notice Bernard Walsh studying me with new interest. Perhaps, Walsh says, we should review Miss Thompson's complete proposal before making any decisions. Father's phone buzzes. He checks it, and for the first time in my life, I see him pale. My own phone lights up with a message from Marcus. SEC filing complete. No turning back now. I swallow hard. I'd given him everything, Father's hidden accounts, Ryan's management failures, my own documentation of questionable practices. A complete record of Thompson Industries sins, now in regulatory hands. If you'll excuse us, Father stands, I need a moment with my daughter. In the hallway, his calm facade cracks. What have you done? Exactly what you taught me. Protected the family legacy. I keep my voice steady. The SEC has everything. In about an hour, reporters will too. You'll destroy us all. No, I'll save us. Thompson Revive isn't just a merger. It's a complete restructuring. Clean books, ethical practices, legitimate success. I step closer. The board can either accept my proposal or face federal investigation. This isn't protection, it's blackmail. I learned from the best. Ryan appears in the hallway, his face ashen. The investors are waiting. Father straightens his tie, his mask sliding back into place. You forced my hand. No, I say, walking back toward the conference room. I've finally played it. Inside, Walsh is reviewing my numbers with obvious approval. The other investors lean in, whispers flying. Shall we continue? I ask, taking my position at the front. Father returns to his seat, defeat hidden behind decades of practice. Ryan stares at his hands. I click to the next slide, my grandmother's words echoing in my head. Sometimes saving something means breaking it first. The breaking is done. Now comes the hard part, building something true from the wreckage. Let me show you, I tell the room, what Thompson Revive can really become. Mother's birthday celebration at the Thompson Mansion feels like a battlefield dressed in evening wear. The SEC investigation hangs over us like a storm cloud, though most guests remain blissfully unaware. I adjust my black dress, the one Mother would call appropriate, and watch Ryan work the room with practiced charm. Darling, Mother appears beside me, champagne in hand. We need to discuss Thompson Revive's leadership structure. Not tonight. Yes, tonight. Her smile never wavers. The press is here. Perfect timing to announce Ryan's position as co-CEO. The champagne turns bitter in my mouth. That wasn't part of the deal. The deal? She laughs musically for nearby guests. Family isn't about deals, darling. It's about unity. Like using my trust fund without my consent? That kind of unity. Her fingers tighten around her glass. You've made your point with this little power play. Now it's time to be reasonable. Before I can respond, Father taps his glass for attention. The room quiets. Today, we celebrate not just my beloved wife's birthday, he announces, but also a new chapter for Thompson Industries. My stomach drops. He wouldn't dare. Our children, Mila and Ryan, will be joining forces to lead Thompson Revive together, continuing our family's legacy of excellence. Applause erupts. Ryan steps forward, wearing a practiced smile. I remain rooted in place. Smile, Mother hisses. The journal is watching. I move toward the podium, fury building with each step. Father hands me the microphone with a warning look. Thank you all for coming, I begin. But there seems to be some confusion about Thompson Revive's structure. Mother's champagne glass freezes halfway to her lips. While I appreciate my father's enthusiasm, Thompson Revive will continue under its current leadership. My leadership. The room falls silent. Ryan's smile cracks. Perhaps Father cuts in, reaching for the microphone. We should discuss details later. No. I step away from his reach. We've had enough discussions behind closed doors. Enough secrets. Enough manipulation. Mila, Mother's voice carries a sharp edge. Remember where you are. I remember exactly where I am. I turn to address the crowd. I'm standing in the house where I was taught that family means loyalty, while my parents plotted to steal my inheritance. Where success only counts if it fits their narrow definition. Phones appear, recording. Father moves toward me, but I continue. Thompson Revive exists because the old way of doing business failed. Because secrets and shortcuts nearly destroyed everything our grandparents built. That's enough. Mother's voice cracks like a whip. No, it's not enough. I pull out my phone, displaying the SEC filing. Everything's coming to light now. Everything. The room erupts in whispers. I see journalists furiously taking notes. You ungrateful child. Mother's perfect mask finally shatters. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? I laugh, the sound harsh even to my ears. What exactly have you done except dismiss, diminish, and deceive? I raised you to be strong. No, you raised me to be invisible. But I'm not anymore. Ryan steps between us. Mila, please. We can fix this. Fix what, Ryan? The company you ran into the ground? The trust fund they tried to steal? Or the fact that our parents would rather destroy everything than admit they were wrong? Security appears at Father's signal. Mother's face is ash white. Miss Thompson, a guard approaches. Please come with us. It's fine. I hand him the microphone. I'm leaving anyway. As I walk toward the door, I hear Mother's voice, small and broken. What have you done? I turn one last time. Exactly what you taught me. Protected the family legacy. Just not the way you expected. Outside, rain begins to fall. My phone buzzes with messages, Grace, Ryan, board members, journalists. I ignore them all. I've won. I've exposed everything, forced their hands, claimed my power. So why does victory feel like ashes in my mouth? A text from Marcus appears. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Ready. I stare at the message, remembering Mother's shattered expression, Ryan's desperate plea, Father's cold fury. What's left to break when you've already destroyed everything? My fingers hover over the phone. The rain soaks through my expensive dress, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls. Marcus's true identity hits me like a physical blow. There he stands in Father's office, not as my ally, but as Thompson Tech's newest board member. Surprised, Father's voice carries a hint of satisfaction. Marcus has been quite helpful in understanding your strategy. You played me. The words taste like acid. All those documents, the SEC filing, were exactly what your father needed, Marcus interrupts, to prove your unfitness to lead. The morning papers splash across Father's desk, headlines screaming about Thompson family dysfunction, about my public meltdown at Mother's party. My calculated exposure of family secrets now reads like emotional instability. The board votes in an hour, Father says. To remove you from Thompson Revive completely. Ryan appears in the doorway, his face unreadable. It's done. My chest tightens. What's done? The merger paperwork. Bright Futures is now officially part of Thompson Industries. Ryan won't meet my eyes. Under my leadership. The room spins. Everything I've built, everything I've fought for. You can't. We can, Marcus smiles. Your signature from last month's preliminary agreement gave us everything we needed. I remember that document. Dozens of pages I'd trusted my own brother to review fairly. Why? I ask Ryan. After everything they did to you? Because family survives, he answers. And you've forgotten what that means. Forgotten. I laugh, the sound borderline hysterical. I remembered too much. Every dismissal, every comparison, every time they made me feel worthless. Enough. Father slams his hand down. You want to talk about worth? Look what your revenge has cost us. Stock prices plummeting, investors fleeing. Good. The word comes out sharp as a blade. Let it all burn. Mila, Ryan steps forward. Please. Just sign the resignation. Walk away clean. I look at them. Father's cold authority, Marcus's smug satisfaction, Ryan's desperate plea, and something shifts inside me. You know what's funny? I move toward Father's desk. You're all so focused on what I might expose, you never asked why I had access to those documents in the first place. Father's expression flickers. Grandmother didn't just leave me money. I pull out my phone, displaying an email. She left me server access. To everything. Dating back 30 years. You're bluffing, Marcus says, but uncertainty creeps into his voice. Am I? I forward the email. Check your phones. Every board member just received 3 decades of Thompson Industries real books. Not the sanitized versions you showed the SEC. The color drains from Father's face. Mila, Ryan whispers. What have you done? Exactly what you taught me, little brother. I survived. I turn to Marcus. And those documents you helped Father collect? Manufactured. Every single one. Impossible. I learned from the best, didn't I, Father? About manipulation, about playing the long game. I check my watch. The real SEC filing goes live in about 30 seconds. Father lunges for his phone, but it's too late. The damage is done. You'll destroy everything, he says hoarsely. No. I'm forcing us to rebuild. Honestly, for once. I meet Ryan's gaze. Together, if you're willing. But this time as equals. The room falls silent except for the buzz of incoming messages as the news breaks. Ryan steps away from Father, then Marcus. How can I trust you after this? You can't. Just like I can't trust you. I hold out my hand. But we can try something new, respect. He stares at my offered hand, years of rivalry and resentment hanging between us. The board meeting starts soon, I say softly. We either walk in there united or watch it all collapse. Your choice. Father stands, straightening his tie. You're no longer my daughter. No, I agree. I'm your equal. Finally. Ryan takes my hand, his grip firm. I want to see the real books first. Of course you do. I smile slightly. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. We leave Father and Marcus scrambling with their phones, walking together toward the boardroom where our family's future waits to be rewritten. Not through revenge, but through truth. Finally, devastatingly, irrevocably true. Grandmother's study remains exactly as she left it, untouched since her passing 3 years ago. I trace my fingers along her desk, remembering all the times I'd watched her work here, commanding respect without raising her voice. The letter arrived this morning, held by her lawyers until this specific date. My hands shake as I unfold it. Dearest Mila, it begins. If you're reading this, you've finally done what I always knew you would, shattered the gilded cage our family built around itself. Ryan appears in the doorway, his tie loosened after the board meeting that officially established Thompson Revive's new structure. Mother's asking for you. Give me a minute. He steps inside instead, studying the room. I never understood why grandmother left you the server access. Father always said it was a clerical error. It wasn't. I hold up the letter. She knew. About everything. Ryan sits across from me, the mahogany desk between us like a judge's bench. Read it? I continue, The Thompson men have always mistaken cruelty for strength, control for leadership. Your father, like his father before him, believed power meant making others small. But true power, my dear girl, lies in lifting others up while standing your ground. My voice catches. Ryan reaches for the letter, but I shake my head and press on. I've watched you build bright futures, creating something meaningful while they dismissed your efforts. You understand what they never will. That legacy isn't about maintaining appearances, it's about creating positive change. The sound of heels clicking on hardwood interrupts. Mother stands in the doorway, her perfect posture slightly wilted. The lawyers are waiting, she says, to finalize the restructuring. There's more, I tell her, continuing to read. I'm not the first Thompson woman to face this battle. Your grandmother fought it too, Mila. And her mother before her. Each time, the men in our family chose pride over progress, control over collaboration. Mother steps into the room, drawn by words she never expected to hear. Until now. I look up at her. She knew we'd end up here. Your grandmother, Mother's voice wavers, was a formidable woman. Like daughter, like granddaughter, Ryan adds quietly. I fold the letter, but Mother gestures for me to continue. Please. My darling girl, remember this. Revenge is easy. Redemption is harder. True strength lies not in destroying what's broken, but in having the courage to rebuild it better. The company is yours now, as it should be. But the real legacy I leave you is this truth. Sometimes the greatest act of love is forcing those we care about to face their own reflections. The room falls silent. Through the window, I can see Father in the garden, looking older than I've ever seen him. He'll never forgive me, I say. No, Mother agrees. But he'll respect you. Eventually. Ryan stands, straightening his tie. The lawyers are waiting. And we have that meeting with the youth program directors. Bright Futures expansion? Mother asks, surprising us both. Yes, I say carefully. We're integrating their education initiative into Thompson Revive's corporate structure. She nods, almost to herself. Your grandmother would approve. I tuck the letter into my jacket pocket, feeling its weight against my heart. There's room in the meeting if you're interested. Mother hesitates, decades of ingrained behavior warring with something new in her eyes. Perhaps. I could learn more about what you've built. Ryan opens the door, gesturing for us both. Shall we? I take one last look at grandmother's study. At the space where one Thompson woman dared to challenge the status quo so another could break it entirely. Yes, I say, leading the way out. Let's build something new. The letter rests in my pocket, its final words unread. P.S. Check the false bottom of the leftmost drawer. The real company books go back 5 generations. Every Thompson woman has added to them. Now it's your turn to write our true history. Some legacies, I'm learning, are written in ink. Others in actions. The best ones, perhaps, in both.
The first guest to check into my hotel on that Tuesday was a dead man. Not literally dead, not yet, but looking back, I realised that's exactly what Ryan Carter was. A walking ghost who'd come to haunt every corner of my life. I watched him sign the register with practiced flourishes, his Mont Blanc pen dancing across the paper. My hotel, the Thompson, wasn't the kind of place that usually attracted men in $3,000 suits and hand-stitched Italian leather shoes. We were boutique, yes, but more vintage charm than modern luxury. Beautiful restoration work, he said, gesturing to the original crown moulding. You don't see this kind of attention to detail anymore. I'm Eva, and I've spent the last decade restoring this place to its former glory. It was my parents' legacy before the accident, and now it's mine. Thank you. The moulding nearly bankrupted me, but I couldn't bear to see it replaced with something modern. His smile reached his eyes. I'll give him credit for that. Later, I'd learn how he practiced those smiles in mirrors, perfecting every crinkle. Sometimes the most expensive choice is the only right choice. He leaned in slightly, cologne, subtle but expensive. I'm in town for a few weeks. Any chance you'd let me buy you dinner? I'd love to hear more about the restoration. I should have said no. Should have seen how his interest was too perfect, too practiced. But loneliness is a hell of a drug, and I'd been sober for far too long. I don't typically have dinner with guests, I said, but I was already reaching for his keycard, already imagining how the story would sound when I told my sister Lily about the handsome stranger who'd swept me off my feet. I respect that completely. He stepped back, hands raised in playful surrender. How about after I check out? Then I'm just another admirer of fine architecture and beautiful hotel managers. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, hating myself for being so easily charmed. Maybe. We'll see how well you treat my hotel. Challenge accepted. He took the keycard, his fingers brushing mine. Room 412, was it? The corner suite with the bay windows. Best view in the house. I doubt that, he said, eyes locked on mine. I watched him walk to the elevator, wheeling his expensive luggage behind him. My phone buzzed. Lily, right on cue. She had a sixth sense for drama. You'll never believe who just checked in, I said, answering before the second ring. Tell me everything, she demanded. Is he gorgeous? Rich? Single? All of the above, apparently. I lowered my voice as another guest approached the desk. Dinner at Marco's tonight? I'll fill you in. God, yes. Finally, something interesting happens in this town. If only we'd known what kind of interesting was walking into our lives. If only I'd noticed how he'd known about the bay windows in 412 before I mentioned them. If only I'd wondered why a man who could afford the Four Seasons chose my modest hotel instead. But that's the thing about perfect moments. They're usually perfectly orchestrated. Ryan Carter had spent months planning his entrance into my life, studying my habits, learning my weaknesses. By the time he signed that register, he knew more about me than most of my friends. I just didn't know I was already cast in his latest production, playing the role of both Mark and unwitting accomplice. The script was written, the stage was set, and I'd just given my first performance without even knowing the show had begun. Looking back, I should have trusted my instincts when Grace, my best friend and event planner, called later that afternoon. Eva, honey, you're not going to believe who I just got off the phone with. Ryan Carter's assistant. They want to book the entire hotel for a wedding next month. What? I gripped the phone tighter. He just checked in an hour ago. Exactly, Grace said, her voice tight with concern. Don't you think that's a little strange? Strange didn't begin to cover it, but by then the curtain was already rising on Act 1, and I was about to learn just how expensive the right choices could really be. Marco's was packed that night, but Lily was already at our usual corner booth, phone in hand, perfectly styled as always. The difference between us was stark, me still in my work clothes, her looking like she'd stepped out of an Instagram post. Sometimes I wondered if we really were sisters. He's even better looking in person, Lily said, eyes fixed over my shoulder. I turned to see Ryan entering the restaurant and my stomach dropped. This wasn't coincidence. He'd known exactly where to find us. Eva, he called out, making his way over. What a pleasant surprise. Lily's face lit up like a Christmas tree. You must be the mysterious new guest. I'm Lily, Eva's sister. Ryan Carter. He slid into our booth without invitation, right next to Lily. Eva didn't mention she had such a charming sister. I watched them interact, feeling like I was witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Lily laughed too loud at his jokes, touched his arm too often. Ryan matched her energy perfectly, but his eyes kept darting to me, gauging my reaction. So, what brings you to our little town? I asked, cutting through their flirtation. Business opportunities. Your hotel, actually. I'm thinking of investing in similar properties. He pulled out his phone, showing us photos of restored historic buildings. I've done several projects like this in Boston. Lily leaned in closer. That's amazing. Eva's been trying to expand for years, but the banks won't take the risk. I shot her a look. We didn't discuss business matters with strangers, especially not my financial struggles. But Lily was already continuing. You should see her proposal. She's got this whole vision for turning the old Morrison building into a sister hotel. Lily? My voice came out sharper than intended. What? He could help. God knows you need it after that last rejection. Ryan watched our exchange with careful interest. I'd love to see the proposal, Eva. Maybe we could discuss it over dinner tomorrow. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Grace's text made my blood run cold. Did background check. No record of Ryan Carter's company in Boston. Call me Asa P. I should really keep business and pleasure separate, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Smart woman. Ryan smiled, but something shifted in his eyes. Though sometimes the best opportunities come from mixing the two. Eva's always been the careful one, Lily said, rolling her eyes. Me, I believe in taking chances. Speaking of chances, Ryan turned to her, I'm hosting a small gathering at my suite tomorrow evening. Nothing fancy, just drinks and conversation. You should both come. We'd love to, Lily answered before I could decline. Actually, I have inventory tomorrow night, I lied, standing up, and Lily has an early shift at the cafe. I can switch shifts, Lily protested, but I was already gathering my things. Another time, perhaps, Ryan said smoothly. Though I hope you'll reconsider, Eva. Sometimes the best decisions are made outside office hours. Walking home later, Lily wouldn't stop talking about him. He's perfect for you, Eva. Successful, interested in the same things. He's not what he seems, I cut in, showing her Grace's text. Lily scoffed. Grace is just being overprotective. Not everyone has ulterior motives. You barely know him. And you barely know how to live. She stopped walking, turning to face me. Ever since Mom and Dad died, you've done nothing but work and worry. Maybe it's time you took a risk. Maybe it's time you grew up, I snapped back, instantly regretting it. Lily's face hardened. I'm going to that gathering tomorrow night, with or without you. I watched her storm off, heels clicking against the pavement. My phone buzzed again, another text from Grace. Found something else. Ryan Carter's brother Mason just filed for bankruptcy protection. Family business gone under. Be careful. The pieces were starting to fit together, but not in any way I liked. Ryan wasn't here by chance, and my sister was walking right into whatever game he was playing. I pulled up my hotel's security app, checking the cameras. Ryan was in the lobby, on his phone, looking far too pleased with himself. Tomorrow night's gathering suddenly seemed like an opportunity I couldn't afford to miss. Sometimes the best way to protect what's yours is to walk straight into the trap. As long as you're the one holding the trigger, the numbers didn't lie. I stared at my laptop screen, cross-referencing the hotel's transaction records with the documents Grace had sent over. Every night since Ryan checked in, there had been a surge of credit card activity. Not just in the rooms he'd booked, but throughout the hotel. Small charges spread across different cards, all just under the reporting threshold. My phone lit up with Lily's text. Having breakfast with Ryan. He has amazing ideas for the Morrison Building renovation. The Morrison Building. My dream project, now being dangled like bait. I clicked through another set of transactions, my hands shaking. The pattern was clear. Ryan wasn't just staying at my hotel, he was using it. You should see this, Grace said, walking into my office without knocking. She dropped a stack of papers on my desk. Remember those Boston properties he showed you? They're all in foreclosure. The Carter family business is underwater, and Ryan's brother Mason is trying to salvage what's left. Does Lily know? Lily won't listen to anyone right now. She thinks she's in love. I pulled up the security cameras. Ryan and Lily were in the hotel restaurant, heads close together over Sophie. He was showing her something on his phone, and she was nodding enthusiastically. The same way I probably looked when he first showed me those fake investment properties. We need to talk to Mason, Grace said. No, I closed my laptop. First, I need to hear Ryan explain these transactions himself. I found him in the bar that evening, nursing a whiskey. Lily was nowhere in sight. Small mercies. Eva, he smiled, that practiced smile. I was just thinking about you. Funny how that works. I sat down, sliding a printout across the bar. I was thinking about you too. And these unusual patterns in our credit card transactions. His expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened around his glass. You know how corporate expenses work. Sometimes things need to be structured creatively. Creative like your Boston properties? The ones in foreclosure? Now the smile faltered. You've been checking up on me. You're using my hotel for money laundering, Ryan. The question is why? You're making dangerous accusations. His voice dropped, all charm vanishing. Accusations that could hurt a lot of people, including Lily. My blood ran cold. Leave my sister out of this. She's already in it. She signed the partnership papers this morning. Didn't she tell you? She's investing her inheritance in our venture. The room spun. Lily's inheritance, the money our parents left her, the money I'd been managing until she turned 30. She'd been asking about accessing it early. You son of a bitch. Business is business, Eva. Your hotel's perfect, established, respectable, just under the radar. We could help each other. Or, he shrugged, things could get complicated. They already are. I stood up, fighting to keep my voice steady. You have 24 hours to check out. You might want to discuss that with your new partner first. He finished his whiskey. Lily's quite excited about our plans. It would be a shame to disappoint her. I walked away before I could do something stupid, like throw his whiskey in his face. In the lobby, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Lily had requested an emergency transfer of funds to a new business account. The paperwork was already filed. Grace was waiting in my office. Mason Carter called back. He wants to meet. Too late. I showed her the transfer request. Ryan's already got what he wanted, access to clean money through a legitimate business. What are you going to do? I looked at the security feed again. Ryan was still at the bar, now on his phone, probably moving pieces into place. He thought he had me cornered. The protective sister, the cautious businesswoman, too afraid of scandal to fight back. But he'd made one crucial mistake. The Thompson Hotel wasn't just my business. It was my parents' legacy. And I'd learned long ago that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to burn everything else to the ground. Call Mason back, I said. Tell him to meet us tomorrow, and Grace, bring everything you've found. It's time to show Ryan Carter what creative accounting really looks like. Mason Carter looked nothing like his brother. Where Ryan was all polished charm, Mason carried himself with the worn-down dignity of someone who'd spent years cleaning up other people's messes. We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the hotel, far enough that Ryan wouldn't accidentally spot us. The money laundering started small, Mason said, spreading documents across the table. Family business was failing. Ryan promised he could save it. By the time I realized what he was doing, we were in too deep. Grace studied the papers, her event planner's eye for detail catching what others might miss. These transactions matched the patterns we found at the hotel. He's done this before, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mason's laugh was bitter. The Thompson Hotel is his 4th attempt. The others... He slid over a newspaper clipping. 3 historic hotels, all foreclosed within months of Ryan's involvement. My phone buzzed. Lily again. I ignored it, but Mason noticed. He's good at finding pressure points, people's weaknesses. My sister isn't weak, I snapped. No, but she wants something. Ryan's excellent at spotting what people want. He pulled out another document. Like this proposal for the Morrison building renovation. It's brilliant, isn't it? Exactly what you've been dreaming of. I stared at the familiar plans. My plans repackaged with Ryan's company letterhead. He stole this from my office. Probably while Lily was distracting you, Grace said quietly. The night of the gathering. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. A photo from Lily, her and Ryan at the Morrison building, hard hats on, champagne in hand. Breaking ground next week, the caption read. Dreams do come true. He can't break ground, I said. He doesn't own. Check the county records, Mason interrupted. See, as of this morning, Carter Developments owns the Morrison building, purchased with capital from their newest partner. My sister's inheritance. Our parents' legacy, handed over to a con man because I'd been too slow, too cautious, too afraid to act. Why are you helping us? Grace asked Mason. He's your brother. Because next time he won't stop at bankruptcy. Someone's going to get hurt or worse. Mason gathered his papers. But I never had this conversation with you. Ryan's dangerous when he's cornered. So am I said. But Mason was already walking away, leaving behind one final document, a USB drive labelled Carter Family Financial Records. Back at the hotel, Lily was waiting in my office. Why aren't you answering my calls? This is important, Eva. The Morrison project is happening. With what money, Lily? Your inheritance? The money Mom and Dad left to secure your future? To secure our future, she corrected. Ryan showed me the numbers. We could triple our investment in 18 months. Like he tripled investments at these hotels? I pulled up the newspaper articles Mason had shared. All bankrupted, all under investigation for fraud. That's not... He explained those. They were timing issues, market conditions. He's using you to get to me, to get to this hotel. God, you're so paranoid. Lily slammed her hand on my desk. Not everyone is trying to hurt us. Some people actually want to help us succeed. Like Ryan helped his other partners succeed. I played the security footage from the bar, his threat about Lily still clear in the audio. She watched, face paling. That's not... He was just protecting our investment. No, he was protecting his scheme. And you handed him everything he needed to destroy us. Lily's phone chimed. Ryan, of course. She looked at it, then at me, tears welling up. You're wrong about him, I'll prove it. She ran out before I could stop her. Through my office window, I watched her cross the lobby, straight into Ryan's waiting arms. He looked up, caught my eye, and smiled that perfect, practiced smile. I plugged Mason's USB drive into my computer. If Ryan wanted to play with family legacies, fine. But he'd forgotten something crucial about the Thompson sisters. We learned about revenge at our father's knee, watching him build this hotel empire one calculated risk at a time. Time to show Ryan Carter what a real calculated risk looks like. The Morrison Building groundbreaking ceremony felt like watching my own funeral. I stood at the back of the crowd, Grace beside me, as Ryan worked the room like a master conductor. Lily sparkled at his side, playing the role of adoring partner perfectly. The Thompson-Carter vision represents more than just renovation, Ryan announced to the gathered investors. It's about family legacy, about trust, about building something lasting together. My fingers tightened around the USB drive in my pocket. Mason's data had revealed everything. The shell companies, the laundered money, the pattern of destruction left in Ryan's wake. But it also showed something worse. Lily's signature on documents she couldn't possibly understand, making her legally complicit in his schemes. You okay? Grace whispered. I nodded, watching Ryan guide Lily toward the ceremonial shovel. They looked perfect together, both glowing with anticipated triumph. My sister hadn't spoken to me in days, not since our fight in my office. And now, Ryan continued, I'd like to invite Eva Thompson to join us. After all, this project wouldn't exist without her original vision. The crowd turned, expecting me to step forward. Ryan's smile was razor-sharp, daring me to make a scene. He knew I wouldn't risk exposing him here, not with Lily's future on the line. I walked to the podium, accepted the second shovel he offered. Thank you, Ryan. You're right. Family legacy is everything. His eyes narrowed slightly at my tone. I turned to the crowd, gripping the shovel like a weapon. Which is why I'm pleased to announce that the Thompson Hotel will be partnering exclusively with Carter Development's parent company for all future projects. Ryan's practiced smile flickered. Behind him I saw Grace slip away from the crowd. Right on cue. In fact, I continued, I've already submitted the paperwork to the board. They were particularly interested in the company's financial records. The blood drained from Ryan's face. He knew exactly which records I meant, the ones Mason had provided, the ones Grace was delivering to the board right now. Eva, Lily stepped forward, confusion clouding her features. What are you doing? Protecting our legacy. I turned back to the crowd. If you'll excuse me, I have an urgent meeting with the hotel board. I'm sure Ryan can handle the rest of the ceremony. I walked away, counting steps. 3, 4, 5. Eva, Ryan's voice carried across the lot. A word? We met halfway between the crowd and the street, his charm replaced by barely contained fury. Whatever you think you're doing, I'm doing exactly what you taught me, Ryan. Making calculated risks. You have no idea what you're risking, he hissed. That USB drive, Mason had no right. Mason's not the only one who kept records. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. Remember that night in the bar when you threatened my sister? Hotel security cameras catch everything. His mask slipped completely then, showing the desperate man beneath. You'll destroy her too. Those documents she signed are void as of an hour ago. The board's lawyers found some interesting irregularities in the filing dates. Lily appeared beside us, her face pale. What documents? Ryan, what is she talking about? Nothing, sweetheart. Just business details. Show her, I cut in. Show her the real contracts she signed. The ones that would have made her liable when everything fell apart. Ryan reached for Lily's arm, but she stepped back. For the first time, I saw doubt in my sister's eyes. The groundbreaking, Ryan said quickly. We need to finish. Is cancelled, Grace called out, walking back from the hotel. The board sends their regrets, and the police send their regards. The crowd was dispersing now, investors muttering among themselves. Ryan's perfect ceremony was unravelling thread by thread. You're bluffing, he said, but his eyes darted toward his car. Am I? I stepped closer. Run if you want, but remember, I learned about revenge from the best. You. He backed away, mask completely shattered. Lily stood between us, tears streaming down her face as she finally saw the truth. The sirens started in the distance, growing closer. Ryan turned and ran, leaving everything behind. The ceremony, the schemes, my sister. I reached for Lily's hand. She flinched but didn't pull away. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. I squeezed her hand, watching Ryan's figure disappear around the corner. Let's go home. The real work, healing our family, rebuilding trust, was just beginning. But at least now we could face it together, without any more perfect lies standing between us. 3 days after Ryan disappeared, I found Lily unconscious in her apartment, an empty bottle of sleeping pills beside her. The note simply read, I'm sorry I ruined everything. Now I sit in the hospital waiting room, my hands shaking as I scroll through the messages flooding my phone. The hotel board wants an emergency meeting. The police need another statement. Grace keeps sending updates about the media circus gathering outside the Thompson. Miss Thompson, a detective appears, notebook in hand. We need to discuss the documents your sister signed. She didn't know, I say automatically, the same words I've repeated for days. Ryan manipulated her. The evidence suggests otherwise. He slides over a photo, Lily and Ryan at a bank, both smiling as they signed papers. These transfers were made weeks before the Morrison project. My chest tightens. That's impossible, the timeline. Shows your sister was an active participant in Mr. Carter's financial schemes, unless you have evidence proving otherwise. I think of Mason's USB drive now in police custody. The records that saved me might damn Lily. My revenge against Ryan could cost my sister everything. Grace appears, face drawn. Eva, the board's here. They're talking about forcing a sale. They can't. They can if they prove the hotel was used for money laundering, with or without your knowledge. The detective watches this exchange with interest. Anything you'd like to add to your statement, Miss Thompson? The hospital room door opens before I can respond. The doctor's expression tells me everything before she speaks. We've stabilized her, but... I push past them all, needing to see Lily. She looks small in the hospital bed, tubes snaking from her arms. The sister I tried so desperately to protect, now broken by my need for revenge. You should have told me. Mason's voice makes me jump. He stands in the doorway looking as haunted as I feel. About Lily's involvement. I could have helped. Like you helped by giving me those records? My laugh sounds hollow. Your evidence might send her to prison. Ryan called me. Mason steps closer, voice low. He's willing to make a deal. He'll take full responsibility, claim he forged Lily's signatures, if you drop the charges and sell him the hotel. He's lying. Probably. But right now he's offering you a choice. Your hotel or your sister. Through the window I can see reporters gathering. The Thompson Hotel scandal grows by the hour. The perfect revenge story turning into a nightmare. My phone buzzes again. An email from the board. They've called an emergency vote for tomorrow. Without my parents controlling shares, which I signed over to Lily months ago as part of her inheritance, I can't stop them. Time's running out, Mason says quietly. Ryan's flight leaves tonight. After that, his offer dies, and Lily faces the consequences. I look at my sister, remembering her as a child, always following me around the hotel, dreaming of making it grander. Now those dreams might destroy us both. He planned this, I realize, from the beginning. The hotel, Lily, all of it. I thought I was destroying him, but he's still playing the game, Mason finishes. Question is, are you willing to lose everything to win? Grace appears with coffee I didn't ask for. Board's getting restless. They want an answer about the sale. I take the coffee, letting its heat burn my palms. The pain helps me think. Ryan calculated everything except one detail. He assumed I'd choose between my sister and my hotel. I pull out my phone, dialing a number I memorized from Mason's files. Hello, Mr. Chen. This is Eva Thompson. I believe you lost some money in one of Ryan Carter's previous ventures. I have a proposition for you. Mason's eyes widen as he realizes what I'm doing. Ava, wait! But I'm already speaking, trading the last piece of my soul for one final shot at salvation. Sometimes, to save everything, you have to be willing to lose it all first. The game isn't over. It's just becoming something darker than even Ryan imagined. The private terminal at the airport was empty except for Ryan, his perfectly tailored suit now wrinkled from hours of waiting. I watched through the glass as he checked his phone again, probably wondering why his escape plane hadn't arrived. He's alone, Grace confirmed through my earpiece. Lily's documents are ready. I pushed through the door, the click of my heels echoing across polished floors. Ryan's head snapped up, relief washing over his face. Eva, I knew you'd make the right choice. Did you? I placed a manila envelope on the seat between us. The hotel's transfer papers as requested. He reached for them, but I held up my hand. First, sign these. I slid over another set of documents. Confession of fraud, absolving Lily of any involvement. Of course. His smile was genuine. He thought he'd won. I meant what I said. I never wanted to hurt her. No, you just wanted to use her to hurt me. Business is business. He started signing without reading, confident in his victory. You understand that now, don't you? Sometimes we have to sacrifice the things we love. Like your brother sacrificed everything for you? Ryan's pen paused. Mason made his choices. He did, starting with that USB drive he gave me. I watched his face carefully. But he wasn't the only one keeping records, was he, Mr. Chen? The door opened behind me. Ryan's face went ash-white as James Chen walked in, flanked by federal agents. The thing about revenge, Ryan, I said quietly, is that your old victims are often happy to help destroy you, and you can't. He grabbed for the hotel transfer papers, but I pulled them back. Those? They're fake? Just like the confession you just signed. I smiled his own practiced smile back at him. Business is business, right? The hotel board, already voted this morning. Turns out Mr. Chen bought enough shares to swing the decision. Your previous victims were very generous once they learned they could help take you down. Ryan lunged for the door, but the agents were faster. As they read him his rights, I saw Mason step out of the shadows. I'm sorry, brother, Mason said softly, but someone had to stop you. You betrayed me? Ryan struggled against the handcuffs. For her? No. Mason met my eyes. For all of us you destroyed along the way. I walked over to Ryan, close enough to see the desperation in his eyes. You were right about one thing. Sometimes we have to sacrifice the things we love. I pulled out my phone, showed him the live feed from the Thompson Hotel. Like your reputation. On the screen, reporters swarmed as federal agents carried boxes of evidence through the lobby. Years of Ryan's careful schemes, exposed for the world to see. You'll lose everything, he spat. Once people know the hotel was involved, they'll know it helped bring down a criminal enterprise. I pocketed my phone. The Thompson Hotel becomes the hero of the story. Lily becomes the innocent victim who helped expose the truth. And you become exactly what you always were, a con man who finally got caught. Eva. His voice cracked, that perfect facade finally shattering completely. Please, I'll give you anything. You already did. You taught me how to destroy someone completely. I turned away, nodding to the agents. Goodbye, Ryan. As they led him away, I heard him shouting promises and threats, but they meant nothing now. Grace appeared at my side, squeezing my hand. Lily's awake, she said. She's asking for you. Tell her I'm coming, with good news. Mason stopped me before I could leave. Was it worth it? Becoming like him to destroy him? I thought about Lily in that hospital bed, about our parents' legacy, about all the people Ryan had ruined. I didn't become like him. I became what I needed to be to protect what matters. Through the terminal windows, I watched Ryan being loaded into a federal vehicle. He looked small now, ordinary, all his power stripped away with his illusions. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about revealing who they truly are, and who you can become in the process. The Morrison Building's renovations started on a Tuesday, just like the day Ryan first walked into my hotel. This time, though, I stood alone at the groundbreaking, watching the sunrise paint the old brick walls gold. "You're here early." Grace appeared beside me, coffee in hand. "The ceremony's not for hours." Just wanted to see it one last time before everything changes. The construction crew arrived, their equipment rumbling to life. Each crash of demolition inside felt like justice, tearing down the last traces of Ryan's schemes to build something real in their place. My phone buzzed, a news alert about Ryan's sentencing. I deleted it without reading. Some endings matter less than new beginnings. "Lily's waiting in the lobby," Grace said quietly. "She wants to help with the project." I turned away from the construction site, walking toward the hotel. Through the windows, I could see Lily at the front desk, reviewing blueprints with Mason. She looked stronger now, more like herself, though shadows still lingered under her eyes. "The Feng Shui consultant says this layout is all wrong," Lily said as I approached. "We should move the main entrance." "Since when do we care about Feng Shui?" "Since I started researching Asian hotel designs." She pushed forward a folder of ideas. "If we're partnering with Mr. Chen's hotel group, we should incorporate elements that appeal to international guests." I studied the plans, seeing echoes of our parents' original vision mixed with something new, something ours. Mason gathered his papers. "I should go. Ryan's sentencing." "Stay," I said. "We could use a good lawyer for the permits." He hesitated, surprise flickering across his face. "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." I met his eyes. Some people deserve second chances. The hotel lobby filled with morning light as guests began trickling down for breakfast. I watched them move through the space, unaware they were standing in what had almost been a crime scene. Now it was just a hotel again. Or maybe it always had been, and Ryan had been the only illusion. "Eva," Lily touched my arm, "about the inheritance. I want to invest it properly this time. In us. In this." She gestured to the blueprints. "If you'll trust me again." Trust isn't the problem. I picked up the Feng Shui plans. But maybe we start smaller, one renovation at a time. Grace appeared with more coffee and a stack of newspapers. "They're calling us the hotel that caught a criminal. Great for business, terrible for headlines." "Speaking of business," Mason pulled out one final document. "Ryan's assets are being liquidated. His share of the Morrison project is available for purchase." I looked at Lily, seeing the same thought cross her mind. "How much?" "Less than you'd think. No one wants to touch anything with his name on it." "Except us," Lily said firmly. "We'll take it." Outside, another crash echoed from the construction site. Through the dust, I could see the Morrison Building's original stonework emerging, beautiful despite decades of neglect. "You know what Mom used to say about old buildings?" I asked Lily. "That they're like people. Sometimes you have to strip away everything false to find what's real underneath." She smiled, really smiled for the first time in weeks. "And then you rebuild." I spread the blueprints across the front desk, our family gathering around them, Grace with her practical suggestions, Mason with his legal notes, Lily with her international designs. All of us damaged by Ryan's deception, all of us choosing to build something new from the ruins. The morning sun reached the crown molding, the expensive, original details that had first caught Ryan's eye. They still gleamed, but differently now. Less like fool's gold, more like something that had survived the fire and emerged stronger. I picked up a pen, ready to mark changes on the blueprints. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying what's broken. Sometimes it's about reclaiming what was always yours. and building it into something even your enemies couldn't imagine. All right, I said, let's make something beautiful.